Chapter 21:36. You, aren't you embarrassed to bully a girl? Her white cheeks were flushed red, and after a long time, Tempting Majo finally said such incompetent and sullen words. When her voice fell, even Tempting Majo herself was stunned, as if she did not expect herself to say such cowardly words. In the past, she was the one who bullied others. Who dared to challenge her like this? Only Dustless, this weirdo, was not charmed by her, and even humiliated Tempting Majo again and again. Girl? That's rare. Dustless's face showed a faint smile, and he still teased. From what you did before, I don't think you are a girl anymore. It's rare to see a girl as violent and barbaric as you. Are you still a man? You even bully a girl? Hearing this, Temptress Beauty Geo clenched her fists. If it wasn't for the difference in strength, she really wanted to punch this bastard to death. His face was already infuriating enough, but his words were even more infuriating. Hee. Dustless laughed twice, and his eyes suddenly became unscrupulous. He stared at Tempting Majo's plump figure. Do you want to try whether I'm a man or not? Stinky rogue. Tempting Majo's face was slightly red, and she spat softly. Am I wrong? Are you a girl? Dustless continued to tease. You are obviously a tigress. Don't be too proud. Unable to bear it any longer, Xiao Majo was enraged. Surging waves of spiritual force broke out from her body, and the void suddenly distorted. A terrifying sphere spun and occupied the blue sky. Perhaps it would not be long before it became a terrifying spatial earthquake. You want to fight just because of a disagreement? Sure enough, you are a tigress. Looking at the changes in the sky, Dustless was still teasing the girl. His plain face was fearless as he lazily said, Anyway, even if AST is attracted here, those little girls won't find trouble with me. But you, seductive beauty Miss Geo, if AST knows that you're an elf, can you still live in peace? Hearing these words, Temptress Majo's expression suddenly stiffened, and her expression suddenly became extremely gloomy. She took a deep breath, stabilized herself, and retracted her spiritual power. She couldn't wait to beat Wu Chun into a pig's head. She sneered, You win, scum. What did you call me? Scum. Dustless showed a pained expression and said resentfully, Sure enough, Tigress is unreasonable. Just wait and see. A fragrant wind blew in front of Dustless, and then Charming Knight Majo disappeared, forever disappearing from Dustless's sight. You run pretty fast. Staring at the back of Temptress Majo, Dustless picked up the bag and slowly walked to the concert venue. The whole person looked comfortable and did not care about the threat of Temptress Majo. In Dustless's view, this was just asking for humiliation. With the strength of Knight Tempter Majo, she was still far from being able to shake him. In the concert venue, it was pitch black, and only the stage in front was the most eye-catching. The stage was filled with an overwhelming number of people. Looking around, 9 out of 10 people were male, which was enough to show how popular Temptress Majo was. Sorry, I'm late. Dustless's apologetic voice came from beside Itsuka Kotori's seat. There was a small problem midway, so I was delayed. Small problem? Itsuka Kotori immediately looked at him with dissatisfaction and said with disdain, Someone reported to me that you and Temptress Majo were flirting with each other. You call that a delay? This guy, hearing this, Dustless almost spat out the drink in his stomach. He glared at Itsuka Kotori. This guy is trying to teach me a lesson. Sure enough, women are easily jealous. Dustless, you actually went behind my back to hook up with someone else's girl? Yasuya glared at Dustless furiously. I must capture you and tie you up, so you don't go around fooling around in the future. No, the most direct way is to castrate you, or make you infatuated with my body. That's the only way to restrain your heart. Agreed. Taking a look at Dustless, Bazu Shixien also showed dissatisfaction. It was extremely rare for her to stand in the same trench as Bazu Yaguya. Victory and defeat had not been decided between the two of them. How could they let an outsider beat them to it? I think so too. Night Sword God, Toka, also came over to join the fun. Lingyin taught me a lot of ways to coax men. I must try them out someday. What nonsense are you talking about? Shut up. Dustless's face darkened, and he scolded angrily. That seductress Magio is a lesbian. She's only interested in girls. The boys who talk to her are more annoying than cockroaches. In desperation, Dustless could only tell the process and the end of the matter, and all the details in the middle. This is bad. Murasame Rain frowned, staring at the surrounding environment, and said uneasily, Dustless offended seductress Magio, and we are now in the venue of her concert. This is her territory. As long as seductress Magio greets us, we will be in danger. She doesn't have the guts. Dustless's mouth raised a faint arc. Seductress Magio thought of him as a jinx and stayed away from him, let alone provoke him. I'm afraid that the word Dustless will become her nightmare. Maybe when she has a nightmare in the future, she will meet Dustless's annoying face. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:37. She doesn't have the guts. The corner of Dustless's mouth raised a faint arc. He was full of confidence, tempting Knight Magio to treat him as a jinx and stay away from him, let alone provoke him. I'm afraid that the words Dustless will become her nightmare. Maybe when she has nightmares in the future, she will meet Dustless's annoying face. Tempting Knight Magio herself hates men very much, even more than cockroaches. The reason is actually very simple. When Tempting Knight Magio became famous, some entertainment companies wanted to use the unspoken rules on her, but Tempting Knight Magio resolutely refused. Some entertainment companies were unwilling to discredit Tempting Knight Magio, causing her to be condemned by the public. It was in this moment of worry that Tempting Knight Magio obtained the powerful power of the elf and resolved this crisis. Since then, she has become extremely hateful of humans. Although she deserves sympathy, she can't hate all the men in the world because of a group of scumbags. She is unreasonable. Dustless muttered to himself, let's just go with the flow. You can watch the concert in peace. Dustless waved his hand and gave everyone a comforting look. At the same time, all the lights on the stage were shining. Tempting Knight Magio and her dance and singing partners were standing on the stage very elegantly. She looks, but she is somewhat beautiful. No wonder she is so arrogant. Dustless stared at the girl for a moment. When he met Tempting Knight Magio just now, she was not dressed up. She was very casual. It was just an ordinary school uniform, but it was already very outstanding. Now, Tempting Knight Magio was wearing a noble dress. She was like a fairy who had fallen to the mortal world. She was beautiful and moving. Her big eyes were very smart. Her delicate little face was white and flawless. She was very sacred. Hello, everyone. I am Tempting Knight Magio. Welcome to my concert. Thank you for your long-term support. Today is a special day. Thank you. Tempting Knight Magio gently lifted her dress and immediately bowed with a very elegant expression. There was a comfortable smile on her face. She was very kind and gentle. There was a feeling that one couldn't help but want to open their hearts. Is this still the seductive Magio? When Dustless saw the girl with a smile on her face, he was speechless. He sighed that the showbiz circle was really deep, and people who were too shallow were not suitable for it. When she met Dustless, Knight Temptress Magio had a humiliating expression. Now, the speed of her face change really made Dustless stunned. He had to raise his middle finger to Knight Temptress Magio. The speed at which he changed his expression was faster than flipping through a book. So, on this special day, today's concert will be different from the past. In the following time, I will be inviting my fans to sing with me on stage. Temptress Magio's shocking revelation on the stage immediately caused countless male compatriots to cheer. The cheers were loud, and they all screamed Temptress Magio's name. A bunch of brainless idiots. To Temptress Magio, you guys are like cockroaches. No, you guys are even more annoying than cockroaches. Seeing this scene, Dustless curled his lips in disdain and sneered, don't think too much about it. Seducer Magio hates men so much. Why would she sing with you? It's just wishful thinking. Dustless bowed his head and muttered to himself. In fact, he couldn't figure out the purpose of Temptress Magio. For this proud and eccentric woman, Dustless was actually quite helpless. Do you think she will take the opportunity to trouble us? Murasame Ling, looked over and frowned and said, I have investigated the information of Temptress Magio. This kind of thing has never happened before. This time it's a bit weird. You offended her before. Maybe this is a deliberate revenge. Revenge? Dustless heard the words and laughed twice. I don't care. Let her do it. Anyway, she doesn't regret it. The little girl knows the price. Murasame Ling gave a big, supercilious look. She also had a headache about this. Dustless's temper was so casual. So, now, please. At this moment, Temptress Magio suddenly announced loudly. Her moving voice was like delicious honey exuding a tempting fragrance, attracting everyone's attention in an instant. I like to see what sort of trouble you're planning to cause. Dustless's sight also looked over. In fact, he was really a little weak in his heart. He could fight, but singing, I hope you don't do anything stupid, Temptress Magio. Dustless muttered in his heart. He immediately stopped looking at Temptress Magio and closed his eyes to rest calmly. But at the moment when Dustless closed his eyes, Dustless suddenly felt a pair of malicious eyes staring at him. He subconsciously opened his eyes and suddenly saw a pair of exquisite eyes like brilliant gems. This guy? Is he really going to make me lose face? Dustless's mouth twitched a few times. His eyes looked at each other and found that the person who was looking at him maliciously was Temptress Magio herself. She raised the corners of her thin lips high, and a victorious smile hung on her charming face. Her quick-witted eyes were full of craftiness, and she looked exactly like a mischievous elf. Could it be that she really wants me to sing with her? Dustless frowned and asked. For his singing skills, Dustless naturally knew that he was tone-deaf. Before he crossed over, he went to KTV with his friends to sing and made a lot of jokes, so Dustless had always been a little tired of singing. If he sang with Temptress Magio this time, he would inevitably become the target of public criticism, and his lifetime reputation would be ruined. Haha, it's Suka Coterie, and others suddenly chuckled and looked at Dustless jokingly. At this moment, Dustless's expression was particularly attractive in their eyes. After all, it was the first time that they saw Dustless so depressed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:38. Huh. It's Suka Coterie, and the others giggled and looked at Dustless mockingly. When they looked up, they saw Dustless's gloomy face. It was the first time they saw Dustless so annoyed. What are you laughing at? Do you want me to beat all of you up? Wu Chen glanced at the girls angrily. His heart was hazy. His gloomy eyes stared at the Temptress Magio. He sincerely hoped that this little girl would not act recklessly. He was good at fighting and killing, but when it came to singing, Dustless wasn't perfect. Although he knew a lot, he wasn't that good at singing. The song that Magio sang was definitely in Japanese. Dustless wasn't good at it. He had never heard of it before. She was purposely making things difficult for Dustless. However, since Magio had made her move, Dustless had no choice but to take it all on. Now, let's welcome number 128 to the stage and sing with me. Magio's crisp voice spread. The audience was as excited as if they had taken drugs. Everyone looked at the seat number excitedly. Damn it, it's not me. Too bad, my goddess is going to sing with someone else. Who is that person? Change seats with me. I'll pay you 1 billion yen. The audience cried out and cursed the lucky number 128. Some people even said that they would pay a lot of money to buy number 128. What's your number? Itsuka Kotori looked at Toka and the others and asked. I'm number 126, Yatsuka said. I'm number 129, Toka Yatsuka said. I'm number 127, Yatsuka said after looking at the seat number under her, but as soon as she said that, everyone looked at Dustless strangely. He was sitting between Toka and Yatsuka. There was no doubt that he was number 128. This little brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth actually dared to scheme against me. Playing with fire will get burned. Even Wu Chun, who had been fixed, was frowning at this moment. His heart, which had not fluctuated for hundreds of years, splashed a faint ripple. Even if tempting Night Beauty Jiao was 20 or 30 meters away, Wu Chan could clearly see her smiling face. Aye, audience number 128, you're so handsome. I'm offering myself to you. Seductive Night Beauty looked at Wu Chun playfully. Her watery eyes were full of tender feelings. Her charming eyes were like silk. She had a posture of offering herself to him. Kill him, this bastard deserves to die. Countless male fans had their dreams shattered. Each of them was like an angry tiger, glaring at Dustless with an unfriendly look, as if they wanted to perish together and go to hell together. You are blessed, Wuchen. You have a lot of luck with women. Murasame's voice said, coquettish fox, you're so blatant. Although Murasame Rain had a gloating expression, the other women all showed dissatisfied expressions. They looked at the seductress Mei Jiao on the stage very unhappily, and they also looked at Wu Chan with resentment. That meant you said before that you had nothing to do with the seductress Mei Jiao, and you were even an enemy, but now she invited you to sing on the same stage, and you still dare to say that there was no scandal? At the same time, all the audience's eyes were focused on Dustless's head. Everyone was burning with jealousy. They couldn't wait to tear Dustless into pieces. Well, this kid was so lucky. You idiots, she deliberately messed with me and retaliated against me for humiliating her before. This Meijio really knows how to play. She made me the target of public criticism all of a sudden. Dustless found that countless men were looking at him with unkind eyes. They couldn't wait to swallow him alive. He complained incessantly, sighing that he was smart all his life, but now he was stupid. He didn't expect to be defeated by Meiju this time. Besides, not to mention the male audience, even Yadakami and Toko were staring at Dustless angrily. They were obviously complaining that Dustless went out to attract women. Your private life is too unrestrained. You need to control it. Itsuka Kotori was the first to speak. Control my ass. I didn't do anything. I'm living a pure life like a monk. Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori and complained. Also, didn't you want me to be the conqueror god? Why did you change your mind? Didn't you want me to conquer fairies every day? I'm trying to persuade you on behalf of Toka. And Toka, Itsuka Kotori glared at Dustless and sat down without saying anything. Meijio, since you want to play, I'll play with you. Just don't cry. At this point, Wu Chan was no longer entangled. He restrained his complicated thoughts. Under the astonishment of countless people, he calmly walked out of the auditorium and calmly walked to the stage. You want to fight with me? I'll make you cry this time. Meijio was stunned for a second and then smiled brightly. She thought Dustless would be scared, but he only hesitated for a second and then walked up to the stage calmly. That was the best outcome. She could embarrass Dustless and make Dustless the public enemy of her fans. He would never have a peaceful life in the future. Thank you for your cooperation. Audience number 128. Meijio had a beautiful smile on her face. When she saw Dustless walk up to her, she whispered, "Kid, just you wait. I won't forgive you for what you did before. The show is about to begin." After being spanked by Dustless, Meijio, who hated men, couldn't take it anymore. It's up to you. Anyway, I don't care. I'll take whatever moves you have. Wu Chun responded casually. He immediately took the microphone sent by Night Tempter Meijio with a calm expression. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters. 3,000 rewards plus more chapters. 1,000 comments plus more chapters. 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2139. Damn it. Why is this guy asking for a beating? Whoever kills him for me, I'll give him 1 billion yen. Me too, my goddess has been defiled by a pig. Why is that brat so lucky? What god does he believe in? I'll believe in him in the future. That's right, because Xiao Meijio had said some ambiguous words to Dustless, It caused all the male compatriots to complain about Dustless. Everyone stared at him with extreme displeasure, with a ferocious look, as if they wanted to rush onto the stage and beat up Dustless. This brat actually defiled their goddess. 10,000 deaths would not be enough to absolve him. Your fans are really crazy. Were you planning to use them to deal with me? What a joke! As an elf, I can't do anything to you, let alone this group of people. It's really funny. Children are children. Dustless's cheeks drooped, his lowered gaze spread around, and secretly clenched his fists. If there was an idiot who didn't know what was good for him, he didn't mind teaching him how to behave. No. Xiao Meijio was tempted to approach Dustless. Under the gaze of countless burning eyes, she was very close to Dustless's cheek. She gently blew a breath of hot air on his face, and said with a smile full of admiration, "It's because your charm is too great, my dear. I can't help but fall in love with you." These words were like igniting a barrel of gunpowder, and the explosive atmosphere of the entire concert reached its peak. Damn it, whoever kills that brat, I'll give 10 billion yen. I really regret not bringing the guns that I secretly hid at home. When the concert is over, I'll make him disappear from this world. The male compatriots wailed angrily, glaring at Dustless with murderous eyes, as if Dustless had once killed their biological parents. It had to be said that once the groupies went crazy, they were really terrifying. Even if it was a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, they didn't mind giving it a try. A bunch of idiots. How could they be so easily manipulated? Can't they see that this brat is doing it on purpose? Taking in everyone's gaze, Dustless secretly scolded that there were idiots every year, but there were especially many today. Night Beauty 9 was a lesbian and hated men very much. She must have said that she was infatuated with Dustless on purpose. Her purpose was to help Dustless attract hatred. Ha! This is going to be a good show. Temptress Meijio smiled coquettishly. Her charming face was filled with schadenfreude. Looking at the angry male audience, she was secretly pleased. She was sure that if she added fuel to the fire, this group of people would rush up and beat up Dustless. Do you feel happy about using your fans? Do you feel a sense of accomplishment? Dustless stared at the face in front of him as he asked in a flat tone. Looking at Dustless's eyes, Night Beauty 9 suddenly felt very cold. Looking at Dustless, she had a strange illusion that she was talking to an ice cube. His eyes were calm and filled with endless indifference. Are you admitting defeat? Taking a deep breath, Night Beauty 9 suppressed the throbbing in her heart and asked, "If you admit defeat, I will let you go now, but from now on, you will be my slave." Dustless, no. You will be number 001. Are you qualified? Those who dare to talk to me like this have all become a pair of bones. Do you think your end will be better than theirs? The corners of Dustless's mouth curled up slightly, and he asked with contempt. This arrogant girl was too self-righteous. She was just an elf, and she wanted him to surrender. She was simply delusional. In other words, you refuse my conditions? Then don't regret it. Now's my home ground. I can make you the target of public criticism at any time. Night Beauty 9 smiled dangerously, like a fox's smile. She took a deep look at Dustless, and then looked at the tens of thousands of viewers. Obviously, she came up with some bad ideas. Does this guy really think that I'm a soft persimmon that can be pinched at will? Dustless frowned slightly, and the corner of his mouth raised a treacherous smile. He laughed in his heart. Night Beauty 9, since you want to play, I will accompany you to the end. Just don't cry in the end. Cough, cough, cough. Today, in front of all my fans, I want to announce a very serious decision that is related to the second half of my life. Night Tempter Meijio held the microphone, and her soft voice resounded through the entire venue. Under everyone's gaze, Night Tempter Meijio finally looked at the indifferent and old-fashioned Wu Chun and laughed secretly. Boy, I'll let you bear the consequences. My fans will definitely not let you off. Dustless, Kun, Night Beauty 9 whispered softly, and her eyes were blurred. She deserved to be in the entertainment circle. The speed of her face change was absolutely unparalleled. This is bad. Do we need to leave early? Many people saw that we came with Dustless. If we get involved, We will be unlucky. Murasame Rain's eyes were dripping, and she looked around without a trace. She took in the changes in the expressions of the crazy male audience. Everyone looked at Dustless with extreme hatred. This guy had offended the public. There is no doubt that Night Beauty 9 is intentional. The more she flirts with Dustless, the more excited these fans will be. If the situation is out of control, Dustless will be unlucky. It is this guy's fault for attracting bees and butterflies, but he doesn't know that dating should be stopped. Now, it's good to let him be unlucky once. Don't worry about it. Just watch with peace of mind. Waving her hand, Itsuka Kotori ordered very seriously. Her crystal pupils were obviously jumping to watch a good show, waiting for Dustless to be unlucky. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2140. Murasame Rain was also extremely helpless about this, and at the same time, her eyes were locked on Kotori. Her clear eyes penetrated the depths of people's hearts, looking at Kotori without blinking. Is there something wrong? Kotori's eyes moved over, and she didn't dare to look at Murasame Rain's eyes. She was inexplicably panicked by her, and she had an illusion that the biggest secret in her heart was exposed. Commander, you can't be. Murasame Rain leaned close to Kotori's ear and asked carefully, Commander, these days, your behavior is very strange, especially after Dustless sealed your power. You don't like Dustless, do you? Like her? How can it be? Kotori was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. She stood up from her seat and said without thinking, All the men in the world are dead. I can barely consider that scum. Kotori. The rest of the group turned their heads to look at Itsuka Kotori with astonishment in their eyes. They were all wondering if she was mentally ill. Even if not, you don't have to be so excited, right? Murasame Rain saw Kotori, who was staring at her, and rolled her eyes. She was so abnormal because she cared. Anyway, it confirmed Murasame Rain's guess. Arrogant brat. I like to see what tricks you have up your sleeves. Bring it on. Blink your eyes, and I'll be your slave from now on. Lowering his head to look at Night Beauty Joe's delicate little face, Wu Chen's eyes were bright, and his tone was carefree. Not only that, but Wu Chen also looked at Temptress Mei Jio with a sneer. At this moment, facing the girl's threat, not only was Wu Chen not afraid, but he also ridiculed Temptress Mei Jio even more, deliberately provoking her. You dare to be arrogant at this time. Do you really think I'm a useless vase? Night Tempter Mei Jio was obviously not to be trifled with. Her beautiful eyes were full of fire. After taking a deep look at Wu Chen, she immediately looked at the audience with a smile. She looked arrogant, as if she had already seen the wonderful scene of crushing Wu Chen. Today, I have something to announce to everyone. Beauty Jio's eyes were shining, exuding a dazzling brilliance. Her whole body carried a huge momentum, and her gentle eyes gently swept the audience. Pointing at Dustless, Beauty Jio smiled cunningly. His name is Dustless. From today, he is my boyfriend. Please take care of him. These words caused the entire place to fall silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the temptress Mei Jio. Countless sounds of heartbreak could be heard. My goddess was taken by a pig. Boyfriend? Are you kidding me? Who allowed that? I will never agree. I don't agree. That guy looks like a gigolo. Other than being handsome, what use does he have? The scene took advantage of the situation for a while, and then it caused a huge uproar. Countless male spectators glared at Wu Chen with fire in their eyes. They were filled with anger, and some of them even scolded him. Wu Chen was instantly condemned by everyone and became the center of the vortex. He was shot back and forth by countless people. Fighting with me. Let's see what you could do now. Beauty Jio looked at Dustless triumphantly, and her small face was filled with a bright smile. Looking at the majestic Dustless, her whole face was filled with a sense of victory. Finally, I won once. Wu Chen remained silent, but in the eyes of Temptress Mei Jio, he was admitting defeat. Thinking of the previous suffocating experience, Temptress Mei Jio suddenly had a feeling of exaltation. This world was really too beautiful. You went around? Who told you? Does this mean you won? Glancing at the temptress made Gio indifferently, Wu Chan calmly asked, "Based on what do you conclude that you've won?" "Ridiculous. I'm telling you now, the show has just begun." Stubborn. Hearing this, Beauty Gio snorted disapprovingly, and then stared at Dustless to see what magic weapon this guy had to turn the tables. While Beauty Gio stared at Dustless, Dustless also stared at her. He also took the initiative to close the distance with Beauty Gio and grab her white arm. "What do you want to do?" Beauty Gio asked nervously. Being stared at by Dustless's blazing eyes made her uncomfortable, but she pretended to be calm and resolutely refused to admit defeat. "What do I want to do?" Dustless smiled strangely and said, "You just said that I'm your boyfriend, right?" "Yes." Beauty Gio nodded. Announcing that Dustless was her boyfriend in front of the fans could arouse the anger of male fans, and Dustless would not be able to have a peaceful life in the future. Aha, then I'll do what a boyfriend should do now. As soon as the voice fell, Dustless pulled Beauty Gio over in an instant. Under the gaze of countless pairs of stunned eyes, he fiercely blocked Beauty Gio's cheeks. "You!" Beauty Gio's eyes widened in an instant. She looked at Dustless in disbelief. She looked at Dustless as if she was looking at a ghost. This guy dared to do something out of line in front of her fans. Oh, after being sluggish for a while, Beauty Gio struggled frantically, but she was too weak to move at all. Her arm was tightly grasped, and she could not resist at all. "You smelly cockroach, how dare you grab me?" Beauty Gio's heart was blown by a storm. Her eyes were fixed on Dustless, and her pretty face was flushed with anger. She never thought that Dustless was so bold that he dared to do something in front of her fans. Wasn't this bastard afraid of being cut into pieces by her fans? Damn it, a man dares to. Beauty Gio clenched her fists tightly. She couldn't wait to beat Dustless to death. However, she was tied up by Dustless at the moment and had no strength to do this kind of thing. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters. 3,000 rewards plus more chapters. 1,000 comments plus more chapters. 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2141. Damn it, a man dares to. Temptress Magio clenched her fists tightly. She couldn't wait to beat Dustless to death. However, she was bound by Dustless at the moment, and she had no strength to move Dustless. For a long time, Temptress Magio hated men very much. There was a kind of hatred from the depths of her soul. Especially Dustless, this guy was really abominable. He even kissed her in public and took advantage of her openly. Dustless's behavior completely angered Temptress Magio. What should I do? This is bad. Seeing Dustless blocking Temptress Magio's lips, Murasame Rain was quite jealous. This was nothing more than verifying Dustless's catchphrase that often hung on his mouth. Dying under the peony, being a ghost, is also a romantic. He caused the trouble himself. He should solve it himself. Itsuka Kotori said. Although she did not show dissatisfaction, Murasame Rain and others were not ignorant in the emotional aspect. They all heard a deep resentment, which was obviously aimed at Dustless. "Oh my god, my goddess. Kill him, you must kill him. Is there anyone who is willing to ally with me?" Temptress Magio, what kind of magic potion did this guy give her? How could he do this kind of thing in public? Damn it, it must be an illusion. This is absolutely an illusion. Countless male audiences were heartbroken. They looked at Dustless and wanted to cry, but had no tears. Their ferocious eyes were comparable to wolves, tigers, and leopards. Everyone's heart was ignited. Your fans are really crazy. In the face of countless eyes that wanted to eat him, Dustless was calm. His cheeks were as calm as still water, and his tone was light as if he was talking about someone else. "You brat, who gave you the courage to do this?" Temptress Magio's little face changed back and forth. It was extremely wonderful. She didn't expect Dustless to be so arrogant. He even dared to take advantage of her in front of her fans. Didn't he know the consequences of doing so? He could be cut into pieces at any time. "Who gave me the courage? Do you still need to say it? You were so close to me. Dustless smiled disapprovingly. Didn't you say that I am your boyfriend? So what if I do this kind of thing? It's normal. Bastard, you clearly know that I said that on purpose, but you still... Tempting Night Beauty Jiu flew into a rage and glared at Wu Chun. Her beautiful eyes were spitting fire. She had a feeling of lifting a stone and dropping it on her own feet. Dustless. Temptress Magio. She gritted her teeth when she mentioned the word girlfriend. Tress Magio. Use whatever means you have, Wu Chun said casually. I to you. To you. To Dustless Magulus. And Magulus to cry s to cry. Ter Magio Magig to SOS to T her to cry. Oh. The sobbing sound was getting louder and louder, and it gradually spread to the audience. The scene that almost went berserk suddenly died down after Temptress Magio stirred it up. There was dead silence. The goddess actually cried. Which brat did it? The male audience was furious. Temptress Magio was the goddess in everyone's dream. Now someone actually made her cry. He should be put into a frying pan. This guy is really bad. He really knows how to play. Dustless frowned slightly. He took a deep look at Temptress Magio and vaguely caught the pride in the girl's eyes. But don't regret it. Dustless muttered to himself in his heart. His frowning brows loosened. He had already guessed Temptress Magio's evil idea. Fight with me? You are finished. Her white, jade-like finger suddenly pointed at Dustless. Temptress Magio cried with a sad face. She was extremely pitiful. She sobbed. He already has a girlfriend and asked me to be his mistress. He also said that I am ugly and said that I am not qualified to be his girlfriend. Woo-woo. In the end, she seemed to have touched the wound in her heart. Temptress Magio's sobbing sound became louder and harsher. Hearing this, not only the audience was stunned, but even Wu Chun also looked at the tearful Temptress Magio inconceivably. In his heart, he secretly said, Damn, you're really an actress. You're invincible when you talk nonsense. When did I say that I want you to be a mistress? Kill this ungrateful brat. He is simply a scum. He is even worse than an animal. Yes, let's kill him together. After a moment of silence, the audience suddenly burst into an earth-shattering roar. They rushed over in a rage. Their ferocious appearance was comparable to ghosts. Everyone held a bench in their hands. They looked like they wanted to die together with Dustless. Ha, you are finished. Seeing this scene, Temptress Magio wiped away her tears and looked at Dustless gloatingly. This bastard is finished this time. Is it? Wu Chun just glanced at the audience as if nothing had happened. Facing the enraged audience, he was not afraid. Instead, he took the initiative to take a few steps forward and looked at the male audience who rushed over with his eyes like torches. You want to kill them? Temptress Magio frowned and then shook her head. If Dustless really did so, there would be no place for him in this world. Since you want to play so much, then I will accompany you to the end. Dustless looked around. His deep eyes suddenly burst out a wave of power, followed by an invisible impact in his body that swept out instantly. Boom, boom, boom. The invisible wave was extremely oppressive and swept over everyone. The crazy crowd stopped at the same time. Under the horrified gaze of Temptress Magio, they fell to the ground in disbelief. What did you do? Temptress Magio screamed and looked closely. Everyone was foaming at the mouth and rolling their eyes. In an instant, thousands of viewers fainted. I just used Haushika to stun them. Facing the girl's questioning eyes, Dustless answered indifferently. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more, 3,000 rewards plus more, 1,000 evaluation votes plus more, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more. Chapter 2142. She just fainted? Hearing Dustless's indifferent answer, Beauty Temptress's face that was not stained with dirt showed some confusion. She just fainted? Isn't it too easy to say? Thousands of spectators attacked without hesitation, showing no mercy at all. Don't waste time. Use all your means. Don't waste my time. Dustless waved his hand impatiently. It's boring to talk to you here. You bastard. Am I that annoying? Pay attention to your words and tone. Hearing this, the nameless fire in Temptress Meijio's heart rose straight up. Her bright eyes stared at Wuchun. She was hit hard by his annoyed tone. All along, she had been loved by everyone, especially after obtaining the power of an elf. Temptress Meijio's temperament became even more arrogant, and she became an existence above others. But as the saying goes, everything is an exception. Dustless's attitude was full of disgust, which made Beauty Temptress feel quite shocked. She even suspected that there was something wrong with her beauty. If there's nothing else, I'm going back to sleep. Dustless coldly glanced at Beauty Temptress. He labeled her as boring in his heart and then left. You, stop right there. Who allowed you to leave? Beauty Temptress was stunned. She quickly shouted, put down all my fans. How can I explain to them if you leave so casually? Fans. Hearing this, Dustless stopped. He turned his head and sneered at Beauty Temptress. Since you can use this group of idiots, why can't I attack them? What's more, you deliberately made things difficult for me. I'm already merciful that I didn't find trouble with you. Don't push it, little girl. I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. In short, you have to stay. Beauty Temptress asked herself if it was Dustless's fault for bickering. His sharp tongue made her speechless every time. However, what made Meijio lose face was that Dustless did not pay attention to her and left on his own. He did not even turn his head to look at Meijio. Despicable fellow. Could it be that being in the same space as this old lady isn't as comfortable as sleeping with you? Temptress Meijio stomped her feet in anger. This feeling of being looked down upon caused her self-esteem to suffer a blow. Temptress Meijio had always been in existence, surrounded by stars wherever she went. Now that she was ignored by Dustless, her heart was immediately filled with anger. Of course, there was also a hint of curiosity and confusion. Unlike the others, Knight Tempter Meijio could clearly feel that the way Dustless looked at her didn't have that kind of deep possessiveness. It was very normal and calm. To put it bluntly, it was as if he was looking at a man. Women were such unpredictable creatures. Sometimes if you took the initiative to pay attention to the other party, they might ignore you. But when you ignored them, they would feel extremely uncomfortable. This was the case for Beauty Temptress Meijio. She had always been praised to the sky, but now someone suddenly pulled her down and kicked her twice. Beauty Temptress Meijio was really disgusted, but at the same time, there was an indescribable special feeling. And I'm just curious, Beauty Temptress Meijio comforted herself in her heart. At the same time, she glanced at Dustless gloomily. Seeing that this guy completely ignored her words, the spiritual power in her body slowly erupted. Boom, boom, boom. The hurricane-like spiritual power fluctuations swept across the audience. The already messy concert was even more unbearable at this moment. It was messy as if they had come to a second-hand furniture market. There were visible cracks on the seats. Immediately afterward, a pleasant song suddenly sounded. This clear and pleasant voice was very warm, like the sun in the cold winter. It made people want to relax and enjoy it. This chick doesn't accept a lesson at all. I just taught her a lesson. In such a short time, did she forget the pain? Dustless frowned. He clearly felt a special spiritual power hitting his mind, trying to control his thoughts. It's just that Dustless's spiritual power is too strong. This week's spiritual power has little impact on him, and it has no effect at all. He can deal with it calmly. Let's leave for now. Dustless shook his head. If he didn't have to, he really didn't want to bully a girl. Although he killed countless people, Dustless still has his own principles. As long as Beauty Temptress Meijio is obedient, Dustless doesn't mind letting her go. But now, it seems that his kindness was ignored by the other party. That's it for today. I'll take you to other places to play later. Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori and others. When he used Haushika Haki to clear the area, he didn't target them. However, Itsuka Kotori and others didn't respond to Dustless. They just looked at Beauty Temptress Meijio with empty eyes, and their cheeks were dull. Seeing that Itsuka Kotori and others ignored him, Dustless looked at them carefully. He saw that all of them were still looking at beauty temptress Magio with a very sincere expression. His face suddenly turned gloomy. You use your ability to control Toka and the others? Dustless clenched his fists suddenly. He didn't like to get angry, but some people always like to seek death. He. Your gloomy cheeks are wonderful. It's the most wonderful expression I've ever seen in my life. Hearing this, beauty temptress Magio laughed out loud. The crisp and pleasant voice naturally evolved into a musical note, which is very pleasant to listen to. People with weak willpower will fall into it if they don't pay attention. Is that so? Dustless looked at beauty temptress Magio faintly. Maybe it's really wonderful, but the price you have to pay for seeing this face is very heavy. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2143. Is it? Dustless looked at temptress Magio faintly, and his eyes emitted a cold hostility. Maybe it's really wonderful, but the price you have to pay for seeing this face is very heavy. When these words fell, the scene suddenly became extremely oppressive, and it was filled with an austere, oppressive atmosphere. Unknowingly, it became extremely difficult to breathe. Dustless's silent eyes revealed a fierce light, and his ruthless eyes looked at temptress Magio unscrupulously. To some extent, temptress Magio had really touched Dustless's reverse scale. He hated this kind of person who threatened him the most in his life. He absolutely couldn't let it go easily, no matter who it was. Anyone can talk nonsense. Don't think that I will be afraid of you. Temptress Magio looked at Dustless without fear. Perhaps because she was really angry, her proud cleavage swayed up and down, and the soul-stirring arc was wonderful and refreshing. However, the scene at the moment was extremely cold, and no one appreciated it. Although temptress Magio and Dustless were tit for tat, her eyes were obviously evasive. Obviously, she lacked confidence and was very afraid of Dustless's strength. After all, she had suffered several big losses before, and it was inevitable that it left a shadow in her heart. All of you go for me. Don't leave him alone. Beat this kid to death. I don't believe that he dares to fight back. Without nonsense, temptress Magio waved her hand gently. Shi Xiang and others who were controlled trembled, and then they rushed to Dustless with empty eyes. Shoo. One after another, beautiful silhouettes rushed over and surrounded him from all directions. These people are your friends. I don't believe that you can do it. Temptress Magio chuckled. Although Dustless gave people a cold feeling, she knew that Dustless cared about Shi Xiang and others from the bottom of his heart. Being able to accompany them to watch her concert explained everything. Therefore, temptress Magio could conclude that Dustless would never hurt Shi Xiang and others, so she could only wait for death. Do you think you can defeat me by relying on them? This idea is too naive and ignorant. The mocking tone rang in her ears. Xiao Magio was stunned for a moment before she looked over. What she saw was Dustless's sneering face. You have a sharp tongue. If you're a man, then kill them all for me to see. Temptress Magio said with an ashen face. She was extremely angry and unhappy. She had always been a proud daughter of heaven. Now, Dustless dared to mock her. His attitude was extremely bad. Temptress Magio's self-esteem was constantly shattered. Do you need to test whether I'm a man or not? Or have you seen it before? Dustless asked with a teasing look. You have a nose and eyes, and your figure is not bad. If you want to have a memorable night with me, it's not impossible as long as you kowtow and beg me. In short, I have always been a very generous person. Go to hell, you bastard. Tempting Night Beauty Gio was so depressed that she almost vomited blood. This bastard really didn't know how to speak. Who didn't have a nose and eyes? These words sounded like a compliment, but in fact, it was even worse than a curse. Moreover, this bastard was simply insatiable. There were too many people who had fantasized about her. Even if there were thousands of people lining up, Dustless wouldn't be her turn. However, this hateful bastard actually asked her to kowtow and beg him. tempting night beauty Geo. She was about to explode. At the same time, 10 fragrances and the others also surrounded them. Boom, boom, boom. A large scale of power fluctuations erupted from Dustless's body. It was almost materialized. Wave after wave, it was vast and endless. The scene was very oppressive and shocking. The high-density power suppressed people until they couldn't breathe. There was no doubt that Dustless definitely didn't intend to wait for death. Binding path number 61, 6-rod light prison. His finger gently pointed at 10 fragrances and the others. Several golden ribbons of light attacked from all directions, easily fixing them in place. Even though they were close to Dustless, it was difficult for them to move. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven to take half a step forward. Is there a mistake? He subdued a group of elves so easily? Could it be that he went easy on them? Tempting night beauty Jiu looked at the scene in front of her in a daze. She subconsciously frowned. She was counting on 10 fragrances and the others to make things difficult for Dustless. Who would have thought that they were so weak that they were easily dealt with in the blink of an eye? Next is you. Since you like to court death, then I can't let you die. Have a good experience of what it means to be unable to live and unable to die. His gaze fell on tempting night beauty Jiu again. Dustless slowly walked over. With every small step he took, tempting night beauty Jiu's heart would sink a little. Sparkling and translucent sweat condensed on her hair. She felt powerless, as if the sky was falling down. Dustless's strength was obvious to all. She really didn't have much confidence in defeating Dustless. Am I going to admit defeat just like that? Tempting night beauty Jiu's exquisite, beautiful eyes stared at Dustless, who was slowly walking over. She couldn't help but shiver. Bow down to a man who has repeatedly despised and insulted me. It's better to kill her. Seeing Dustless's face, tempting night beauty Jiu was extremely depressed. Boom, boom, boom. Although her strength was not as good as Dustless, tempting night beauty Jiu's body also burst out with surging spiritual power. The vast ocean was endless, as majestic as the sea. There was no limit to it. Undoubtedly, tempting night beauty Jiu was also going all out. She had repeatedly offended and plotted against Dustless. She knew that after being captured alive, she would definitely be tortured by this guy. Tempting night beauty Jiu hated men very much, and her temper was very arrogant. She had the temperament of a queen. How could she tolerate being Dustless's captive? Absolutely not allowed. A deathbed struggle? TSK. Whether it is an elf or a human, this is an instinct. When facing danger, it is absolutely impossible to bow down and give up. Sensing the spiritual power fluctuation in tempting night beauty Jiu's body, Dustless smiled faintly and still walked over. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 evaluation votes plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2144. Don't come over, or we'll fight to the death. Temptress Magio threatened. She had already unleashed her spiritual power and almost used all her strength, but she still couldn't stop Dustless's pace. His face was extremely relaxed, as if he was walking leisurely in the clouds. There was no resistance, and he walked over gently. Hee. As I said before, don't overestimate yourself. With your level, you want to fight to the death with me? Naive little girl. The fish will die, but this net will not be broken. Dustless said slowly. At the same time, he glanced at the embarrassed Temptress Magio and said coldly, as I said before, you will pay a heavy price. Let's start now. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As his voice fell, Dustless disappeared like a ghost. What the hell? How can a mere human be so fast? Temptress Magio opened her eyes wide and looked around for traces of Dustless. She tried to capture Dustless's figure, but sadly, even though her eyes were sore and stinging, she couldn't find any trace of Dustless. Ha! A crisp sound suddenly spread out, and a strange numbness swept through her body in an instant. Temptress Majo blushed and turned her head to glare at Dustless angrily. She roared, "You dare to hit my butt? Stinky hooligan, scum, you are wasting human resources by living. If I were you, I would find a place where there is no one around and hang myself." Very quickly, Xiao Meiji reacted and said evil words. "Hee, you continue to talk. I'll do it." As his voice fell, Dustless winked at Temptress Majo and smiled. "You bastard." Temptress Majo was furious. Then, her thin lips opened slightly, and a pleasant song came from her throat, making people addicted. Boom, boom, boom. However, this heavenly song was extremely dangerous and contained a terrifying sound wave attack. The moment he heard the song, Dustless's mind roared. It was as if there was a time bomb buried in his body that suddenly exploded. Bang, bang, bang. Dustless's body was blasted into pieces by the sound wave. His perfectly fine body flew out like a fairy scattering flowers. However, what was intriguing was that when a person's body exploded, the debris that flew out should be bones and blood, but what floated out of Dustless's body was shiny light. Furthermore, what made Dustless most oppressed was that in the blink of an eye, the splashing resplendent light gathered once again, filling up the original missing parts. Dustless's body was instantly repaired. Damn it, what kind of freak is this damn brat? Why does he have such an unheard of ability? He's just a stinky hooligan. Looking at the recovered Dustless, Temptress Majo stomped her feet. Her words were filled with jealousy. If only she had such a heaven-defying ability. You don't have a brain at all. Dustless sighed and said sympathetically, "I told you before. I am a flash person who ate the flash fruit. All physics won't work." As you can see, even if you are lucky enough to attack me, it won't have the slightest effect. I will be restored without limit. Temptress Majo didn't attack. Dustless's lazy tone seemed to be mocking her own weakness. This volcano suddenly erupted. "Is your ability that great? If you are a man, then have a fair fight with me." Temptress Majo pouted. Her angry appearance was very flirtatious. Her towering cleavage swayed back and forth, almost bursting out of her dress. Gulp. Seeing this scene, even with Dustless's temperament, he couldn't help but stagnate. He immediately sighed. Some people are particularly eye-catching when they are angry, but it's still the same sentence. Whether I am a man or not, why don't you take off your clothes and let's try it? With a playful smile on his cheeks, Dustless's face was extremely thick. Such shameless words were said calmly. You are shameless." Temptress Majo was instantly embarrassed. Her snow-like face was covered with a sickly blush. Compared with Dustless, her face was too thin, full of flaws. Gently glancing at Temptress Majo, Dustless once again turned into a stream of light and rushed out. He circled behind Temptress Majo with lightning speed and gently raised his big hand fell again. Pa! It was the same crisp sound as before. It lingered in the dead-silent concert venue for a long time. It was accompanied by a burst of fragrance quietly spreading to every corner. "Ah, bastard, I want to die with you." Temptress Majo was stunned at first. After a few seconds of being dumbfounded, she went berserk. She roared at the top of her voice. She didn't have the slightest demeanor of a lady. She was like a servant who had been wronged. There was no doubt that her violent temper was exposed. She turned around and slapped Dustless. As everyone knows, Temptress Majo is an out-and-out lesbian. Men are cockroaches in her eyes. She will feel disgusted even if they say a word. Now, she was humiliated by Dustless and spanked twice. Even a clay figurine would have a clay figurine, let alone Temptress Majo, who hates men. Boom! It seemed like an ordinary slap, but it contained a great energy fluctuation. Under anger, Temptress Majo covered her palm with all her spiritual power. If ordinary people were slapped, they would die on the spot. At this moment, she was really murderous. Bang! Such a dangerous slap hit Dustless head on. His body trembled slightly. This time, he didn't even use the Devil Fruit's elemental transformation ability. This bastard, after being stunned for a while, Temptress Majo's face turned green. She cursed secretly What is this bastard made of? Why is his skin as hard as a diamond? He is fine after being slapped. The slap hit Dustless, but nothing happened at all. Instead, Temptress Magio's arm trembled from the rebounding force. Her entire arm softened and was easily caught by Dustless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:45. Let go of me, bastard. Being held tightly by Dustless, Temptress Magio almost vomited. She had goosebumps all over her body, and her face was full of shame and anger. It couldn't be helped. She hated men so much. It was like an instinct. She was fine at first, but when she was suddenly grabbed by Wu-chun, she inexplicably felt like vomiting. Didn't I say that you will pay a heavy price? Glancing at Temptress Magio, Dustless said in a very casual tone, provoking me, if I don't leave a terrible memory for you, how can I survive in the future? I must let you live in my shadow for the rest of your life. What do you want? She stared at Dustless while choking with sobs. At this moment, in the eyes of Temptress Magio, this handsome little face was extremely terrifying, more terrifying than a demon. How about it? It's very simple. Dustless stared at the frightened Temptress Magio and chuckled. You dare to control my people. How about this, from now on, you will be my shadow in the future. Shadow? Hearing this, Temptress Magio's little face froze. She looked at Dustless blankly, not understanding what this guy meant. The so-called shadow is naturally like a shadow, following the body. In other words, from now on, you will be my slave. Dustless stretched out his tone, and at the same time, quietly observed the changes in Temptress Magio. Boom, boom, boom. Temptress Magio's body suddenly erupted with powerful spiritual power fluctuations. She gritted her teeth and tried her best to suppress her anger. You want me to be your maid? Why don't you die? But sadly, after enduring for a long time, Temptress Magio almost became a ninja turtle. In the end, she couldn't suppress the anger in her heart and couldn't help but roar out. Still not convinced? Seeing this, Dustless was suddenly happy. If Temptress Magio was willing to bow her head, he didn't mind being a gentleman. However, Temptress Magio was a blockhead, and he had to teach her a lesson. Pa! Another slap landed on alluring Night Beauty Joe's important part as a woman, and a bright red palm print appeared on it. Temptress Magio grimaced in pain. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes as she glared angrily at Dustless. The tears that were about to flow out of her eyes were sucked back in by Temptress Magio. Her expression was stubborn as she angrily rubbed her buttocks. After being slapped by Dustless a few times, it was extremely painful. If you have the guts, then kill me. What's the point of humiliating a girl? Temptress Night Beauty said in a low voice. Her teeth were about to shatter. Kill you? That's too kind. Dustless suddenly laughed. He was as cheap as he could be, at least in the eyes of the Temptress Magio. Gulp. Looking at the smirking Dustless, Temptress Magio's heart skipped a beat. She was very nervous and had a bad premonition. Since you don't know what's good for you, then I will. Staring at Temptress Magio's noble dress, Dustless grinned. His expression was as wretched as it could be. He was like the reincarnation of a pervert. A pair of big hands grabbed over. Crack! The exquisite dress was easily torn by Dustless, revealing her white skin. Temptress Magio suddenly felt a chill in her body. She looked down and saw that her cleavage, which made people feel ashamed of themselves, was exposed under Dustless's eyes. Stinking rogue. Temptress Magio was furious and slapped him. Bang! Dustless easily blocked her weak arm. His face immediately turned cold, and his other hand hit out without hesitation. Pa! The majestic cleavage suddenly shook. It was so painful that Temptress Magio burst into tears. At the same time, her body also seemed to be electrocuted. All the strength in her body was drained. She fell down softly and fell into Dustless's arms. You're really a female rogue. You keep saying that you hate men, but now you take the initiative to throw yourself into my arms. Please, Temptress Magio, can't you be a little bit more reserved? I'm embarrassed. Dustless blinked his eyes. His expression was shy and embarrassed. You are a sinister villain. Temptress Magio's face turned green. Of course, she wanted to say goodbye to Dustless, but the slap just now had an inexplicable power, which drained all her strength. Her whole body was weak and soft in Dustless's arms. What's the matter? Why do I suddenly have no strength? Temptress Magio's eyes were blurred. She fell into Dustless's arms. She wanted to find a hole to drill into. She lost her face. However, this guy smells very good. Inadvertently exhaling, a simple and elegant faint fragrance came from Dustless's body into the ears and nose. It was very light, almost faint, but it really existed. It was like a poppy, which made people fascinated. It was the first time that Temptress Magio heard that a man's smell could be so good. No wonder that group of girls listened to him. The group of girls in Temptress Magio's mouth was naturally Night Blade, God 10 Fragrance, and others. Their power was sealed by Dustless. Their strength was extremely weak. Just now, they were unconsciously controlled. Temptress Magio, don't waste my time. What is your choice? Do you want to be my maid? Or do you want to be thrown on the street by me? Don't you hate men? I will take off all your clothes and throw you into the pile of men. Showing a scary expression, Dustless scared the girl. Are you serious? Temptress Magio looked at Dustless in horror. The good impression of Dustless that she had with great difficulty disappeared without a trace in an instant. Woman, you're asking for a beating. If you don't agree to my conditions, I will throw you into the pile of men and live with a group of cockroaches. This is a new experience that you have never had before. Do you want to try it? Dustless said seriously. In fact, he was just deliberately scaring Temptress Magio. I promise you, from now on, I will be your servant. Gritting her teeth, Temptress Magio finally succumbed to Dustless's conditions. She did not dare to gamble. If Dustless really did that, her life would be over. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2146. I promise you that I will be your servant from now on. Gritting her teeth, tempting Night Magio finally succumbed to Dustless's conditions. She didn't dare to gamble. If Dustless really did that, her life would be over. The moment she agreed to Dustless's conditions, tempting Night Magio's eyes were empty and gloomy. It was as if her soul had been taken away, and she had turned into a walking corpse. Looking at Dustless in a daze, tempting Night Magio gradually recovered her strength. She broke free from Dustless's arms and stared at his handsome face in a daze. She never expected that one day she would lower her proud head to a man. Even now, tempting Night Magio still felt like she was in the clouds, as if everything was still an illusion. However, the tingling sensation from her buttocks told tempting Night Magio that this wasn't a dream. It was useless to regret it. Dustless would retaliate even more fiercely. Why are you still standing there like a fool? Hurry up and release the ability to control 10 fragrances and the others. Really, your reaction is so slow. You're really like a piece of wood. Seeing tempting Night Magio staring at him in a daze, Dustless scolded her in annoyance. Fine, I'll endure it. You're unreasonable. Taking a deep breath, tempting Night Magio resisted the urge to vomit blood. Tempting Night Magio released the ability to control Night Sword God, 10 fragrances, and the others. She only hoped to send this plague away as soon as possible. Dustless stood there for a while, and tempting Night Magio felt stifled. She couldn't even breathe properly. What do we do just now? Strange, why am I here? I seem to remember that there was an extremely powerful energy that invaded my mind. As for what happened after that, I can't remember clearly. The girls' eyes regained their spirit. When they saw the light band that bound them, they discussed in confusion. At the same time, they looked at Dustless and Tempting Knight Magio at the same time. Looks like it's a success. Murasame Rian Giant chuckled and looked carefully. She saw Knight Temptress Magio standing next to Dustless. Although her pretty face was ugly, she was sure that Dustless successfully took Knight Temptress Magio. Otherwise, this little girl would have already exploded. Knight Temptress Magio had always kept a distance from men. At present, she kept a short distance of 1 or 2 meters with Dustless. But if I said that I successfully took down the Knight Seducer Magio, this favorability index is too strange. At the same time, Murasame Rain collected new information. The favorability of Knight Tempter Magio to Dustless. But what surprised Murasame Rain was that Dustless actually got Knight Tempter Magio, but the favorability of this arrogant girl to Dustless was 0. As expected of Dustless, you are indeed extraordinary and powerful. Seeing that Magio was obedient but displeased, Murasame Rain could only give a thumbs up. Is everyone all right? Today's farce is over. Let's go home together. Walking to Itsuka Kotori and the others, Dustless also felt a burst of exhaustion. He could crush his enemies easily, but he couldn't deal with disobedient and stubborn women step by step. Dustless had lost a lot of brain cells because of this. You kissing me like this, it gives people the feeling that you are very happy, and you're tired? Itsuka Kotori grumbled. Her resentful tone made her sound like a resentful housewife. Dustless glanced at Itsuka Kotori. Her resentful gaze made him feel uncomfortable. Making out with this guy? Before Dustless spoke, Knight Temptress Magio couldn't help but jump out. Then kill me. Yes. Wuchen also nodded in agreement and said without hesitation, who would be intimate with such a tigress? It's better to sleep. You. Hearing that, Knight Temptress Magio's mouth twitched. She picked up something and threw it at Dustless without thinking. Fortunately, Dustless dodged it, otherwise his head would be bleeding. This bastard is really preposterous. Could it be that being intimate with me isn't as important as him sleeping? Is this asshole a man, or is there something wrong with his sexual orientation? Knight Temptress Magio cursed Dustless in her heart. Let's go back. After saying that, Wuchun took the lead to leave the dark and messy concert venue. He bathed in the warm sunshine again and felt refreshed. The cells in his body seemed to come alive in an instant. Itsuka Kotori and others followed behind Dustless. They kept chattering, which made Dustless roll his eyes and left alone. This is, however, before Dustless left for long. Dustless received a special message in his mind. TSK. That sickly girl, Tokusaki Kurumi, finally couldn't take it anymore. Looks like she's going to bow down to me. Dustless was pleased with himself. Tokusaki Kurumi had been trapped in the Kemui dimension for a while, living alone in a desolate world. No one talked to her. She was the only one in the entire dimension. But it was worth mentioning that other than Tokusaki Kurumi, Dustless also left a shadow clone to observe Tokusaki Kurumi's movements. The message just now came from the shadow clone. Tokusaki Kurumi couldn't take it anymore. She was on the verge of breaking down. Knight Temptress Magio is obedient, and Tokusaki Kurumi is also quiet. These two troublesome opponents seem to have bowed down to me. This is a double blessing. Dustless quickened his pace and returned home as soon as possible, then released Tokusaki Kurumi and sealed her power with a kiss. Frankly speaking, after sealing Tokusaki Kurumi's power, Dustless could also use Tokusaki Kurumi's power. Dustless was actually quite interested in the Engraving Emperor's power. Dustless was envious of such a powerful ability that could even allow him to travel back in time, and he longed to have it. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2147. Itsuka Kotori's house. Thinking of Tokusaki Kurumi's unhappy face, but she had no choice but to lower her head, Dustless felt an indescribable joy in his heart. Tokisaki Kurumi was extremely seductive, as dangerous as a poppy flower, but also irresistible. However, her personality was as stubborn as the seductress Meijio. Dustless knew that he didn't have the ability to conquer this thorny rose. After all, not everyone had the same protagonist aura as Itsuka Shido. That was why Dustless had spent a lot of effort to force them to lower their heads. Now that he finally had some progress, he could not help but feel relieved. Kamui. Dustless activated his ocular skill, and the void in front of him distorted. He then jumped into it. The gloomy world was deathly still. There were no signs of life. The entire world was gray, just like the scene of the beginning of the world. As far as the eye could see, this world was filled with endless skyscrapers, but there wasn't a single human or living being. Even the air that entered the lungs was suffused with depression and coldness. It was undeniable that living in such a depressing environment was truly incomparably gloomy. After a long time, no matter who it was, they would be able to endure it. Unexpectedly, Wu Chun was no exception. Just think about it. If there was only one person in a world, wouldn't that be boring to death? Buzz, 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 a series of ripples appeared in the sky. A young man with his hands behind his back slowly walked out of the ripples. There was a faint smile on his handsome face. Who else but Dustless could enter the Kimui dimension other than the trapped enemies? "Aye, Miss Toshiaki Kurumi. You look really pathetic." Dustless lowered his head and looked at the ground. He quickly found Toshiaki Kurumi's trace and walked over to her. Bastard. Seeing Dustless walking over, Toshiaki Kurumi cursed in her heart. If it were not for the difference in strength, she would not mind giving Dustless a good beating. Looking at her, Toshiaki Kurumi's eyes were gloomy. She looked like a patient who had just recovered from a serious illness. Her spirit was dispirited. Her white cheeks were also very dull. She looked very gloomy. This was all thanks to Dustless. After being locked up for so many days, Toshiaki Kurumi had been tormented by loneliness. Huff! Seeing Dustless finally appear, Toshiaki Kurumi's eyes glowed with a strong desire to win. "Let me out, and I'll agree to all your conditions. From today onwards, I'll be your slave. I didn't force you. I'm a very democratic person." Dustless put on a kind face. But in Toshiaki Kurumi's eyes, "You're a good person? Then I'm a saint." But Dustless's tone suddenly changed. "Since you've agreed to be my slave, I can't refuse. Naturally, I have to take in a poor, homeless person like you. So, from today onwards, you're mine. If I tell you to go east, you have to go to the end of the world. Even if there's a mountain of swords and a sea of fire in front of you, you can't hesitate. Do you understand?" One annoying guy. Toshiaki Kurumi snorted in her heart. But on the surface, she had no choice but to agree. "I swear, okay? From now on, I'll be Dustless's slave. I'll die a horrible death if I break my oath." As soon as she finished speaking, Toshiaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with her lustful eyes. She lowered her head in submission. Her watery eyes were full of flattery, as if she could agree to any of Dustless's conditions. "At least you know what's good for you." Dustless glanced at Toshiaki Kurumi and said no more. He activated his eye skill again. Soon, the void in front of them twisted and a pitch-black hole appeared. Dustless took Toshiaki Kurumi into the hole and disappeared from Kimui World. "We're finally back. But why is it your house?" Toshiaki Kurumi took a deep breath of fresh air. Her expression was indescribably comfortable. After being locked up for so long, she was about to go crazy. "I like to ask that too." Itsuka Kotori was like an overturned jar of vinegar. She glared at Toshiaki Kurumi and asked in a serious tone, "Since when did you have another elf in your house? What's your relationship with her? Could it be that you've already conquered it?" "Dustless, you're really a Casanova." Itsuka Kotori said it nicely, but everyone could hear the sourness in her words. Not only Itsuka Kotori, but even Yusuke Toka and the others looked at Dustless with dissatisfaction. This guy is really a womanizer. "What relationship? Can't you see it? You're so slow." Toshiaki Kurumi returned to her demonic nature and approached Dustless. Her next move shocked everyone. Mwah. In a flash, Toshiaki Kurumi tiptoed and left a kiss on Dustless's cheek. She looked at Itsuka Kotori and said with a smile, "Now do you know what our relationship is? Little mistress. From now on, I'm Masters." "Master, what's your relationship?" Itsuka Kotori wasn't the only one who was angry. Everyone glared at Toshiaki Kurumi and cursed her for being the reincarnation of a vixen. She was too shameless, and the word master made their imaginations run wild. However, most of them glared at Dustless with hatred. "What does it have to do with me? I didn't say anything. You guys are too naive. Can't you see that Toshiaki Kurumi is trying to take revenge on me?" Dustless looked at the girls who were gobbling up the food and felt innocent. He looked at Toshiaki Kurumi and saw her gloating expression. He knew that she did it on purpose. Itsuka Kotori and the others were all jealous. Toshiaki Kurumi used their innocent thoughts to her advantage. For example, she kissed Dustless to make them jealous. Chapter 2148. Dustless felt wronged when he saw the greedy eyes of the girls. He glanced at Tokusaki Kurumi and saw her gloating expression. He knew that she did it on purpose. Itsuka Kotori and the rest were all jealous, and Tokusaki Kurumi made use of their pure thoughts. For example, kissing Wu-chun just now was to get rid of these jealous people. Needless to say, Tokusaki Kurumi was very smart. She winked at Wu-chun, flirted with him, and purposely straightened her body. At the same time, she looked at Itsuka Kotori provocatively. Her mocking gaze was clearly saying, "Don't be envious of me, you airport runway. Don't get carried away." Itsuka Kotori's expression changed. She glared at Tokusaki Kurumi and snorted proudly. "I'm still young. When I grow up, my body will make you feel ashamed." But when she said that, Itsuka Kotori didn't sound confident. She wasn't sure what would happen in the future. She was just bickering. How could an outsider like Tokusaki Kurumi be so arrogant? She couldn't tolerate it. "It's all your fault for bringing back such a jinx." She glared at Wu-chan with an unfriendly gaze. Itsuka Kotori pushed all the responsibility to him. If it wasn't for him being a busybody and bringing Tokusaki Kurumi back, this wouldn't have happened. "What does it have to do with me? Didn't you ask me to conquer the elves? Now you're blaming me." Dustless rolled his eyes when he saw Itsuka Kotori's glare. At the same time, he glared at Tokusaki Kurumi. He knew that she did it on purpose to make everyone angry. "Ha ha!" Tokusaki Kurumi suddenly chuckled. She stared at Wu-chun as if she had discovered a new continent. She didn't care about the disgust in the eyes of the people around her. "I seem to have discovered your weakness. You don't seem to be able to do anything against them." Dustless looked at Tokusaki Kurumi as if he was an idiot. He couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on her. Tokusaki Kurumi had sneakily kissed him on the cheek, but she didn't seal her power. This meant that Tokusaki Kurumi didn't have a good impression of Dustless. It was unrealistic for him to obtain her power. Tokusaki Kurumi's impression of you is the same as seducing Meijio. They're both 0. Rei Murasame came over. Her eyes were filled with confusion. "You used seducing Meijio to deal with Tokusaki Kurumi, more or less." Wu-chan nodded and immediately told Murasame Rain all the cause of everything, including the secret of Kanui, space imprisoning Shikaki Kurumi. "No wonder her impression of you is 0. After a while, Murasame Ling-in suddenly understood and immediately smiled bitterly. "To be honest, you are really a freak. They obviously hate you very much, but you use means to threaten them, and they're all very obedient. In addition to dating, this is also another shortcut to conquer the elves. Bullshit shortcut. It's all because I'm strong." Dustless snorted and said disapprovingly, "If one day I become weak, Tokusaki Kurumi will definitely kill me, cut me into 8 pieces, and whip my corpse. Seducing Meijio will probably do the same." The reason why they lowered their heads was because of Dustless's strength. "You know yourself well." Rei Murasame laughed and didn't deny it. After all, it was a fact. If Tokusaki Kurumi and seducing Meijio really had the means to deal with Dustless, they definitely wouldn't let him go easily. However, It's a pity that they won't have the chance to suppress me in this life. They are destined to crawl under my feet obediently. Dustless stared at Tokisaki Kurumi for a while and immediately went upstairs to sleep. He completely ignored Tokisaki Kurumi and Tokisaki Kurumi, who were arguing. No matter what, as long as they don't fight, they can do whatever they want. At the same time, in another direction, what an amazing guy. Even that Yuri girl was tamed? If this continues, we won't be able to do anything. That guy will capture all the elves in one fell swoop. In the DM company, Isaac Ray Pelham Wiskett, who was one of the company's top executives, looked down at the skyscrapers outside the window. He, who always looked confident, frowned deeply at this moment. His face was full of confusion. Until now, he still hadn't figured out what kind of person Wu Chan was and why he was so heaven-defying. His strength was unprecedentedly strong. Even the elf was crushed and subdued. Even a most difficult seducer, Mate Ju lowered her arrogant head at this moment. He's indeed very strange. The blonde beauty standing beside Isaac Ray Pelham Wiskett was Irene, who had a grudge with Dustless a while ago. She was also quite surprised. After all, seducing Meijio was the most difficult Yuri to deal with, but she was still defeated by Dustless and lowered her arrogant head obediently. Even though they were enemies, Irene couldn't help but admire Dustless. You think that guy is amazing, don't you? At some point, Isaac Ray Pelham Wiskett had begun to stare at Ellen, and his bottomless eyes were suffused with a terrible oily light. No, that guy is just using some despicable and boring methods. How can he be compared to him? Irene felt uncomfortable being stared at. She quickly denied it loudly. No matter what, let's not care about other things. First, we have to deal with the problem of the princess. I remember Dustless named her Yuri Toka, right? It's a nice name, but it's a pity. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2149. No matter what, let's not care about anything else. First, we have to deal with the problem of the princess. I remember Dustless named her Night Blade God 10 Fragrances, right? It's a good name, but it's a pity. Isaac Ray Pelham Westcott muttered to himself. His gaze was deep as he stared at the tall buildings in the distance. His calm gaze suddenly revealed a monstrous ambition. If possible, it's best to capture that Dustless guy as well. Puffed. Hearing this, Irene spat out all the hot water she drank. Her expression was extremely awkward. What's the problem? Or did I say something wrong? Isaac Ray Pelham Wiskett frowned and said in an unfriendly tone. His tone was very gloomy and cold. No. Realizing that she had lost her composure, Irene quickly apologized awkwardly. It's just that my stomach hasn't been feeling well recently. I'm feeling a little nauseous. Is that so? After taking a deep look at Irene, Isaac Ray Pelham Wiskett didn't bother to continue thinking about this issue. He just put his hands in his trouser pockets, and his gaze was incomparably distant. That clear gaze seemed to be able to hide from him. Phew! Seeing that the shrewd and terrifying man in front of her was not acting strangely, Irene heaved a sigh of relief. Her current situation was like living with a king, was like living with a tiger. She could not guess what Isaac Ray Pelham Westcott was thinking. Of course, there was also a unique pressure, the fear of a superior. The reason why she spat out the water just now was because Irene felt that Westcott's thoughts were too naive. Was Dustless someone that could be captured just because he wanted to? It was not that simple. To put it bluntly, when facing Dustless, Irene did not have the slightest confidence. Not to mention capturing Dustless alive, it would be a blessing from the heavens if she was not captured alive. Please don't ask me to deal with that damn pervert. Thinking of how terrifying Dustless was, Irene could not help but shiver. She could not help but pray in her heart. She really did not want to fight with Dustless. She was not a match for him at all. Or to put it bluntly, it was suicide. Irene, I have something for you to do. At the same time, Westcott suddenly turned around and stared at Irene. His gaze was so bright that it could melt a person. Don't tell me. He wants me to deal with Dustless? The corners of Irene's mouth twitched a few times, but she could only bite the bullet and say, "Please speak, Your Excellency. I'll leave the task of dealing with Yedao, Shun, Toxiang, and Dustless to you. Don't disappoint me," Westcott said in a serious tone. His expression was meticulous, and it was obvious that he wasn't joking. Finally, he instructed, "Remember, you must capture the two of them. That's easy for you to say. One of them is an elf, and the other's strength is unfathomable. At the very least, he's stronger than the elves. Do you think I'm a god?" As Weiscott's subordinate, it was her duty to take care of Dustless and the elf. However, Dustless was too strong, so strong that she couldn't handle him. "I'll do my best." Looking at Westcott's eyes, Irene sighed and could only grit her teeth and agree. "Very well, I hope you succeed." Westcott revealed a gratified smile and gave her an encouraging look. "Don't disappoint me, Irene." Irene fell silent and nodded. Since there was no way out, she could only walk this path to the end. Thinking of this, Irene's unfocused gaze gradually became firm. Even though she knew that Westcott was pushing her into a fire pit, Irene chose to carry out the task without hesitation. After all, this was the meaning of her existence. It was also time for her to show her worth. The sky gradually turned dark. Cold winds swept across the vast land. Tonight's night was especially bleak. Even the moon was very blurry, hiding in the clouds as if it was hiding from something. From a day until now, Toka and the rest had been mocking Toshiaki Kurumi. They were like fire and water, staring at each other whenever they met. However, Toshiaki Kurumi was indeed Toshiaki Kurumi. She was indeed different from the rest. She didn't fall into a disadvantageous position when facing off against the girls. If it weren't for Dustless suppressing her, they would have already started fighting. Bang, bang, bang. The peaceful night was suddenly filled with the sound of things being smashed. It was extremely messy, and one could even hear the sound of shouting. "It's already midnight. Are they still quarreling? Young people are really energetic." Dustless popped his head out from under the blanket and was speechless. Toshiaki and the rest could be considered to have set a record by quarreling for a few hours. Especially now, they didn't show any signs of stopping. Instead, they were getting more and more intense. It was truly admirable. "Forget it. Let's go and persuade them." Dustless put on his slippers. It was the middle of the night, and he couldn't sleep because of their quarreling. Moreover, Toshiaki Kurumi's spiritual power was not sealed yet. It would be too late for regrets if she got angry and did something out of line. Was it an illusion? Suddenly, Dustless turned his head and stared at the dark window. The bright moonlight was clearly visible. In that instant, he felt an unfamiliar aura. "Don't come over. Go away, or I'll beat you to death." However, after a few seconds, the screams of the night blade, God 10 fragrances resounded throughout the area. It was an illusion. There really is an intruder. How bold. Dustless quickened his pace and quickly walked towards the room of the saber, God 10 fragrances. He had already guessed who this mysterious intruder was. Bang! He kicked open the door, and a familiar figure came into view. "Irene, it's really you. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 2150. Have I been discovered? Seeing Dustless's figure, Irene could not help but feel guilty and had a headache. The owner of the indifferent gaze in front of her was just too powerful. He was so powerful that she could not handle him. He was so powerful that he could kill her at any time without breaking a sweat. "Dustless, save me. Beat this bad woman away." Night Sword God 10 Fragrance, who was restrained by Irene, hurriedly shouted. At this moment, she was only wearing simple pajamas. She was completely restrained by Irene and could not move. Night Sword God 10 Fragrance looked at Dustless pitifully. She felt very wronged. "Let her go, Irene." Dustless looked at Irene indifferently. His tone was calm, and there was no trace of anger. It was as if he was narrating an extremely ordinary matter. "You, watch your tone. Don't talk to me like you're my boss. Irene frowned slightly and looked at Dustless with a rather unhappy expression. His seemingly calm tone contained a sense of supremacy. To put it simply, it was an order to Irene. I'm sorry, I can't accept this. This is an order from above. I'm just carrying out my mission. If you don't want to be my enemy, then quickly disappear from my sight. Irene said expressionlessly. She pretended to be calm on the surface, but her heart was extremely bitter. She only wanted to take 10 fragrance away without anyone knowing. However, the latter violently resisted. Even if her power was sealed, the commotion caused was rather big. In the end, it still alarmed Dustless. Sigh, what a foolish woman. After staring at Irene for a while, Dustless suddenly sighed and asked, You clearly know that you are no match for me, yet you still dare to challenge me. The person who asked you to carry out the order is obviously pushing you into the fire pit. The most ridiculous thing is that a foolish woman like you still accepted this kind of mission. How foolish and ignorant. So what? There are some things that I don't have a choice in. Irene's eyes dimmed slightly. From a certain perspective, Wolcott was indirectly asking her to commit suicide. After all, challenging Dustless was equivalent to courting death. What a foolish woman. Seeing Irene's stubborn look, Dustless gently shook his head and said seriously, Miss Irene, let go. You can't take 10 fragrances away. Really? Hearing this, Irene smiled confidently and suddenly locked Toka's throat. Dustless, I know you're very powerful, but if you don't want this girl to die, then get out of my way. In other words, are you threatening me? Narrowing his eyes, Dustless's eyes flickered with an ominous light. Since you're threatening me, then don't blame me for being ruthless. So. As soon as he finished speaking, Silver's body suddenly disappeared, leaving only a dazzling flash. Despicable fellow. Seeing this, Irene's mouth twitched violently. Seeing that Dustless had disappeared and the entire room was left with a sky full of light, she immediately grabbed Night, Sword God 10 fragrances, and meticulously observed the changes in her surroundings. She looked behind her from time to time and looked to her left and right. Her suspicious look was rather comical. It was hard to imagine that this was the world's #1 magician. What ability is this? After carefully sensing for a while, Irene's expression changed drastically. She was sure that Dustless was in this room, but the strange thing was that other than the sky full of light, there was no one else who could see it. This was like the enemy was right in front of you, but you couldn't find him no matter how hard you tried. The world's #1 magician? Although your strength is weak, your intuition as a woman is praiseworthy. A faint ripple appeared in the void, followed by Dustless's cold voice. Just as Irene had guessed, Dustless was in this room at the moment, but Irene was helpless because she couldn't capture Dustless's physical body at all. Pretending to be mysterious, come out if you're a man, Irene shouted coldly, trying to anger Dustless. You're definitely the most cowardly man I've ever seen. Too useless. Unexpectedly, Dustless wasn't angry. Instead, he laughed strangely. Seductive Beauty Geo also said this to me. She once asked me if I was a man, and my answer was, do you need to personally experience whether I'm a man or not? What about you now, Irene? You're shameless. Hearing this, Irene's face turned red. She didn't expect that Dustless, who usually looked like a refined and well-behaved person, would become the reincarnation of a pervert at this moment. The meaning behind his words was that he wanted Irene to use her body to prove whether Dustless was a man or not. Although I've killed countless people, I still have a bottom line. Those who are obedient and tactful, I don't mind showing mercy to them. But if they're blindly ignorant, then don't blame me for being ruthless. The emptiness in the room flickered, followed by Dustless's voice. Could it be? Could it be? Carefully looking at the floating light, Irene guessed. Could it be that these photons are Dustless? Damn it. How am I supposed to attack him? He doesn't even have a physical body. That way court fellow really sent me to my death. Although the enemy was close at hand, he didn't even have a physical body. How was she supposed to fight? How about this, Irene? You rely on me, and I'll kill the man who instigated you to capture 10 fragrance. And from then on, you'll be mine. Dustless instigated with a smirk. You know very well that Wei Court is just a simple human. There's nothing special about him that's worth pursuing. If you rely on me, your future will be bright, and you'll be able to see a bigger world. Anyway, there was a lot of space in the system, and with Irene, Dustless could afford a razor. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2151. Rely on you? Hearing this, a bright light flashed across Irene's eyes. It was as fast as lightning, disappearing in less than a second. She's really moved. I told you, as long as she has ambition, as long as she's ambitious, she'll be able to see how special I am. Relying on me is just a matter of benefits. Even though the light in Irene's eyes disappeared in an instant, Dustless saw it clearly. He immediately understood that Irene was moved. However, this was normal. After all, Wei Court was just a human. No matter how great his achievements were in the future, they were already fixed. On the other hand, Dustless had a mysterious background and was unrivaled in strength. Clearly, he had a better future. Secondly, Wei Court had sent Irene to challenge Dustless. She knew that she would be crushed, but she was still sent to her death. Irene's heart was already somewhat conflicted. That's right, rely on me. A fine bird chooses a fine tree to nest in. You can choose for yourself. Dustless's mouth was as sweet as honey. He enticingly said, "What Wei Court can give you, I can also give you. What he can't give you, I can also give you. Why should I believe you?" Although she was somewhat moved, Irene was still somewhat hesitant. Dustless wanted to gain something without risking anything. There was no way he could fool her with an empty promise. Why? Because of this. Dustless looked at Irene with disdain and clenched his fists. He raised his voice. "Because I'm stronger than you, that's all. Nonsense. In the end, you're still trying to trick me into killing Wei Court." Irene coldly snorted. She grabbed Toka tightly and looked at Dustless as if she was facing a great enemy. "Bad woman, Dustless has no reason to lie to you." Toka also took the opportunity to speak. He said seriously, "Dustless was the one who took me in back then. He's very good to me. There's no reason to lie to you, nor is there a reason." Dustless had accompanied Yedao God Toka to go shopping, go on dates, go to the movies, especially when he bought all kinds of delicious food for free. That's because you're too stupid and too naive. Don't treat everyone as a foodie like you. Irene looked at Toka disapprovingly. Dustless was able to conquer Toka with just food. This only meant that she was too naive and could eat too much. After wasting half a day of my time, you still don't understand. Dustless realized that Irene was still on guard against him. The gentleness on his face gradually disappeared. "Since you don't listen to me, I can only use my strength to trample you." Swish, swish, swish. As soon as he finished speaking, the sharp sound of something breaking through the air resounded through the entire house. In an instant, Nightblade God Toxiang seemed to have been invaded by the sun. The bright light was extremely dazzling. Countless rays of light converged and emitted a scorching light. So dazzling, Irene quickly closed her eyes. If she looked at the ball of light for one more second, her eyes would be blinded. The moment Irene closed her eyes, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of her. It directly pushed Irene's arm away and snatched Nightblade God Toka away. Damn it! Realizing that she was empty-handed and that Nightblade God Toka was suddenly snatched away by Dustless, Irene immediately lowered her head and cursed. She suddenly opened her eyes and endured the discomfort in her eyes. Her gaze was locked on Dustless, who was close at hand. In just a moment, the equipment of AST members appeared on her body. Her equipment was different from those of Liaozi Under the Sun, Tokichi Origami, and the others. She also held a sharp beam saber in her hand, a rare display device, Staring at the imposing Irene who was glaring at him with hostility, Dustless smiled carelessly. But if you think that this kind of scrap metal can deal with me, it only shows that you're too naive. Scrap metal? Hearing this, Irene's little face darkened. She was hit hard by Dustless's words. The display device she used was very different from the display devices used by AST members. It was more powerful and designed in more areas. It was much more advanced than the display devices of Tokichi, Origami, and the others. But at this moment, it became the scrap metal in Dustless's mouth. This was naked slander and disdain. You'll regret this. Irene's little face changed dramatically. She held the beam saber in her hand and slashed horizontally. Her speed was extremely fast. In just a blink of an eye, the beam saber held by Irene hit Dustless's head. Poochie. Dustless's whole body was suddenly split into two. It was easily split into two by the beam saber. This disgusting ability again. Don't tell me there's no flaw. Witnessing Dustless being instantly killed, Irene wasn't happy at all. Dustless, who had been split in half, only turned into a sparkling photon. Then, he was perfectly restored to his original state. That hateful face was restored once again. You're too weak, Dustless said softly. His tone was very light, but when it fell on Irene's ears, it was as heavy as Mount Tai. He mocked her for being a frog at the bottom of a well. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In anger, Irene once again slashed the beam saber at Dustless. Clang, clang. This time, Dustless obviously did not want to continue playing house with Irene. Seeing the beam saber coming at him, he calmly reached out and grabbed it. His big hand was hit by the beam saber and made a crisp roar. It was like hitting steel. Bright sparks flashed in an instant. Why is this guy's hand so hard? Ai Lien looked at Wu Chun in astonishment. She stared at his fair right hand, which was holding the beam saber calmly. He was safe and sound. Nothing happened to him at all. Ka. Dustless exerted a little force. The beam saber in his hand suddenly had cracks visible to the naked eye on its surface. The cracks spread to the entire blade at an extremely fast speed. How strong is this damn pervert? He actually crushed my weapon with his bare hands. Irene looked at Dustless in a daze. Her gaze was as if she was looking at a monster. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2152. Irene was dumbfounded, crushing her beam saber with pure strength. What kind of shocking strength was that? He was like a monster with unlimited potential. And the most shocking thing was that Dustless's calm expression did not change at all. On his cheeks, these words were clearly written. I didn't use my full strength. You think you're strong? Wu Chun laughed involuntarily when he saw Irene's disbelieving and astonished appearance. And he spoke words that struck Irene extremely hard. I might as well tell you directly. Among the enemies that I've fought, you absolutely belong to the weakest group of people. You, don't be too arrogant. Irene's pretty face showed a hint of anger. She always felt that Dustless was ridiculing her. So what if you're strong? Why are you always so narrow-minded? Dustless looked straight at Irene. If he knew what she was thinking, he would definitely feel wronged. Speaking the truth, he would also be considered narrow-minded. It's not that easy to take me down. Irene looked at Dustless with a slightly smug look. A transparent pink light gradually appeared on the surface of her body. Following that, an emerald green protective cover suddenly covered Irene's body. She was isolated from the outside world and was in a special domain. Being wrapped in this mysterious protective cover, Irene felt more at ease. A faint smile bloomed on her face. At least before you break my domain of will, I will never admit defeat. Domain of will. Hearing that, Wu Chun took a closer look at the rain shield. After a long while, he said disdainfully, it's just a piece of broken paper. Why do they have to give it an elegant name, random field? It's really disgusting. It's just a piece of scrap paper that will break with a touch. Pretending to be cultured, vulgar to the extreme. You bastard, watch your words. Irene looked at Dustless in a frenzy. She almost fell down because of these words. A broken piece of paper defense? It was simply nonsense. Irene's phenomenon device was of a higher level than everyone in AST. There was no doubt that the so-called domain of will was stronger. Now, that Dustless said that it was a broken piece of paper defense that would break with a touch. How could she not be angry? This stinky man really looked down on others. Why don't we make a bet? Irene looked deeply at Dustless and said in a deep voice, "If you can defeat this random field, then I will be yours from now on. If you can't defeat my defense, then you and I, Nightblade God Toka, will have to leave with me." Huh. Hearing this, he was stunned at first. Then he looked at Irene with an idiotic expression and said disdainfully, "Silly girl, you think too highly of yourself. You think you can match up to the two of us? Could it be that you're the reincarnation of a deity? Are you that valuable?" Irene was incomparably embarrassed. Only now did she abruptly recall the situation she was in. Right now, whether or not she could safely leave this place alive was already a problem, let alone negotiate with Dustless here. But I promise you, anyway, the end result will be the same. Let's not waste any more time. After a moment of silence, Dustless suddenly agreed to Irene's condition. "Anyway, you will lose everything. From now on, you will be my servant, Miss Irene." "Oh no, I should change the name, Servant of Irene." "Stop talking nonsense. Since you've agreed to the bet, then do it." The corner of Irene's mouth twitched violently. Dustless's words were always so harsh and unpleasant to the ear. This guy's ability to escape with his mouth seemed to be stronger than his strength. Bang! Who would have thought that the moment Irene's voice fell, a silent explosion came from the random field, followed by a ka-ka-ka sound that spread out. How is this possible? Hearing this crisp, shattering sound, Irene's heart was filled with a huge sense of unease. She suddenly raised her head and saw that the seemingly sturdy Irene's random field had a crack the size of a finger on it. What kind of joke is this? It looks like a weak punch. How could it break the random field? Just how strong was this force? Could it be that Godzilla in the anime is disguised as a human? Irene covered her cherry blossom mouth with both hands, the shock on her face difficult to conceal. Dustless's move was not the slightest bit flashy. It was just an extremely simple punch. But the strange thing was that the supposedly invincible random field collapsed in an instant. It should be understood that even if the random field of the AST member's display device was the random field, it was impossible for the elfin to break it with a punch. Not to mention the complexity of Irene's set of equipment. It was far beyond the display device used by the AST members. It was simply not on the same level. But the strange thing was that Dustless still broke it with a punch. Bang! In the end, the random field completely collapsed, turning into countless glass-like fragments. Irene's whole body was once again exposed to Dustless's sight. Her expression was dull and numb. She was shocked to the point of being absent-minded. Her eyes were fixed on Dustless, as if she was trying to figure out his origin. "Why are you still in a daze? Now you're my servant, right? Be clear about your own identity. Is it something a servant should do to look at your master without any hesitation?" Dustless's sudden words gave Irene goosebumps. She recalled the previous bet and regretted it. She stared at Dustless's cheeks that deserved a beating. Even if she was very unhappy, she could only endure it humbly. In the end, she sighed helplessly, lowered her proud head, and looked at Dustless in a submissive tone. "Master, if you have any orders for me to do, just say it." Irene did not have the slightest way to resist. Since she lost, she lost. From now on, she was Dustless's servant. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2153. That's a good girl. Hearing this, Wu Chun smiled with deep gratification. He was quite satisfied in his heart. It was nothing to conquer a woman, but it was a real ability to make a woman who hated him obedient. Let's see if you're useful or not. in case you shoot yourself in the foot. It would be a tragedy if you only pretend to obey me." Dustless stroked his chin and walked around Irene twice with a teasing look on his face. "You know, Master, what do you want me to do?" Irene asked respectfully. She secretly glanced at Dustless from the corner of her eyes, feeling nervous. Especially when she saw the faint smile on Dustless's face, Irene felt even more uneasy. "You've got guts. You actually dare to look at me. Do you know your crime?" After a moment of silence, Dustless asked in an extremely unfriendly tone. "I'm guilty just because I looked at you." Irene was speechless and blushed. She didn't expect to be caught spying on Dustless. She felt quite embarrassed. However, what made her angry was that she was guilty just by looking at Dustless. She had even touched him just now. Shouldn't she be cut into pieces? "Irene, you're on your own now." Yi Daoshan Toxiang's expression was also very strange. She stared at Dustless and saw the naughty smile on his face. She immediately knew that he was going to teach Irene a lesson. Maybe he's just testing me and doubting my loyalty. As long as I know what's good for me, it'll be fine. After thinking about it, Irene felt relieved. In this situation, as long as she lowered her stance, even if she was wrong, Dustless would definitely let her go. In the end, she would be fine. "I'm sorry, Master. I was rude," Irene said in a very humble tone. "Good attitude. It's good that you know your mistake." Dustless's face bloomed with a very bright smile. His cheeks were also incomparably gentle, and his faint smile gave people a feeling of gentleness. "Sure enough, it's just as I imagined. Next, you should let me go, or just hand over the mission to me." Sure enough, I understand men's thoughts too well. After being Westcott's secretary for so many years, she had accumulated a wealth of life experience. Actually, Dustless was deliberately looking for trouble to test her attitude. Even if she wasn't wrong, she had to admit her mistake. She definitely couldn't question Dustless's decision. If she resisted, Dustless would definitely think that she was two-faced. But after a few seconds, Irene was dumbfounded. "Since you know you're wrong, you can be exempted from the heavy punishment. I have to give you a warning. This time, I'll be lenient with you." Wu Chen looked at Irene benevolently and then said lazily. Irene's expression froze. She was a little angry in her heart. She cursed inwardly. This guy really doesn't play by the rules. I clearly didn't do anything wrong, but this guy just had to show me his strength, and now he wants to punish me. This is too much. Seeing Dustless's smiling face, Irene felt stifled and angry. She regretted saying, "I know I was wrong." Dustless's smiling face seemed to be waiting for her to admit her mistake. Irene felt like she had been tricked. As long as Master is happy. Even though she was unhappy, Irene could only pinch her nose and accept it. She could only look at Dustless pitifully. She only hoped that this guy wouldn't go overboard. At least, he wouldn't mess around. "Irene, don't worry. I've always been a fair person. I can't tolerate sand in my eyes. Naturally, I won't deliberately make things difficult for you," Dustless promised solemnly. Irene was incomparably depressed. She thought to herself, "What are you fair about? You're full of nonsense. This matter is clearly caused by you deliberately causing trouble for me, but you still dare to say that you're fair and impartial. You're too shameless." A.I. Lian's gaze searched for traces of Dustless, but she noticed to her astonishment that Dustless had already vanished from her line of sight since an unknown time. Could it be that this guy's conscience is at ease and he can't bear to destroy me? Looking left and right, Irene didn't see any trace of Dustless. She suddenly felt relieved. She was really afraid that Dustless would mess around and do something crazy. Suddenly, Irene felt a chill in her lower body. She couldn't help but shiver. "Ah!" Irene instinctively screamed. Her words revealed endless fear. When she turned her head, she was surprised to see Dustless with a mischievous smile. His big hand had unknowingly lifted up Irene's clothes. Her white, jade-like skin was exposed to the air. "Hooligan, stay away from me." Irene looked at Dustless in horror. This guy was too scary. He changed his face just like that. Didn't he say that he wouldn't mess around? "Have you forgotten my punishment? This is it." Dustless blinked innocently and said, "You." Irene was furious. She raised her voice and angrily shouted, "You said that you wouldn't deliberately make things difficult for me and would punish me lightly. Now you actually took off my pants. You're obviously deliberately embarrassing me. This is a lighter punishment. It's taking off your pants in public. Of course, it's only in this house," Dustless said very casually. Immediately, he looked at Irene with a stern expression. "Do you want to try a heavy punishment? That's fine too." As soon as his voice fell, Dustless began to take off his clothes. "Stop!" Irene panicked when she saw this. She quickly grabbed Dustless's hands tightly. If this guy was really honest with her, Irene felt that she wouldn't have the face to see anyone for the rest of her life. "Thank you, Master, for your mercy. I'll take it off now." Irene resisted the urge to vomit blood. In the blink of an eye, there was only a pair of white pants left. After all, she still had Fat Two to protect her. It was better than being punished by Dustless on the spot. "You're still too weak to fight with me." Dustless was secretly pleased. A victorious look surged between his brows. Now, he could confirm that Irene was really loyal to him. She had swallowed her anger, which indirectly showed that she was desperate. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2154. AI Lien wanted to cry, but had no tears. She could only swallow the consequences of her own actions. It was useless to reason with a temperamental person like Wu Chun. Just a moment ago, he was still smiling like a good old man. Who would have thought that this guy was a natural performer? The speed at which he changed his face was really admirable. 1 second ago, he was in front of the flowers and under the moonlight. But the next second, he had a honeyed mouth and a dagger in his heart. AI Lien felt that she was deeply harmed by him. What orders does Master have? Holding back the rage in her heart, Irene asked Dustless with a fake smile. At this moment, she was completely naked. She was only wearing a Fat Two bra. Her delicate white skin was perfectly exposed to Dustless's eyes. Why isn't this despicable guy looking at me directly? He's not even looking at me. Is he purposely messing with me? Irene saw Dustless closing his eyes in satisfaction, as if he wasn't interested in anything. She couldn't help but feel a little defeated. It's very simple. Go and help me get rid of that Weisskort now. Remember to destroy the corpse and destroy the evidence. Dustless spoke frankly. He drank a mouthful of tea to moisten his throat. Then he sneered and said, "He actually dared to make a move on me. The guy is done for. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll pay them back 100-fold. Dustless naturally couldn't let the other party off the hook after being schemed against. Especially this Weisskort's DM society. It was an evil organization that targeted the elves. As long as the elves were alive, they wouldn't give up on their plans. They would continue to carry out all kinds of crazy and dark plans against the elves. In other words, as long as Dustless lived with the elves, the other party would definitely continue to provoke him. Since that was the case, he could only flatten them. This, Irene also vaguely guessed Dustless's motive. She said with some difficulty, "Although I'm very confident in my own strength, Weisskort isn't an ordinary person. I'm afraid that I'll go for wool and come home shorn. Don't worry and just do it. I don't ask for much. Just do your best. If you fail, run for your life." Dustless nodded faintly. Although Irene was being evasive, it was undeniable that this was the truth. The DM company was also a company with many hidden talents. What Irene said was also the truth. However, Dustless did not expect her to kill Westcott. This was just a proof of her allegiance. As long as Irene attacked DM and Westcott, it would indirectly mean that she was sincerely siding with him. Running for your life after failing? Irene was startled as she looked at Dustless's handsome face in surprise. His face was as calm as still water, and his bright eyes were deep and calm. It was said that the eyes were the windows to the soul. Dustless's eyes were extremely calm, and he didn't seem to be lying. Perhaps I've really followed the right person. Although this guy is temperamental sometimes, at least he won't make unreasonable requests. Also, like I said before, Dustless has a better future than Weisskord. Irene's resistance towards Dustless also greatly reduced. It was rare to see a boss who understood his subordinates like this. Then I'll take my leave, master. Irene lowered her head and said. As she spoke, she couldn't help but reveal a trace of respect. Subconsciously, she had already acknowledged Dustless. Just do your best. There's no need to fight to the death with them. Dustless nodded slightly. After all, it was just a simple test. There was no need for Irene to risk her life. Then, he waved his hand, indicating that Irene could leave. Is it really appropriate to let her leave like this? She was just fighting and killing just now, and now she's suddenly your subordinate. This change is a little too fast. Night Sword God 10 Fragrance's head was still a little stuffy. Previously, she had threatened to kill Dustless, but in the blink of an eye, she had become Dustless's subordinate. This ending was really shocking. What's the big deal? As the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. In life, there are too many things that don't go your way. There's no perfect choice for her, so she can only choose the lesser of two evils. That's why that girl called Irene can only choose the most advantageous condition for herself. Just like me, since I don't want to die, I can only submit to this guy. Tokisaki Kurumi had appeared out of nowhere. She was dressed in a black lace robe, and her skin was faintly discernible. Her body exuded a refreshing fragrance that stirred one's blood. Every move and action of hers was captivating, making one's appetite wet. Why are you wearing such revealing clothes? Damn seductress. Night Sword God 10 Fragrance glared at Tokisaki Kurumi as if she was a love rival. Then, she hurriedly covered Dustless's eyes with her hands. Don't look, this bad woman is too evil. What does it have to do with me? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry when Tokisaki Kurumi covered his eyes. He could only shake his head inwardly. Jealousy between women was truly a headache sometimes. However, Dustless had to admit that Tokisaki Kurumi was very good at dressing herself up. She was able to perfectly display her most charming parts. She was very mature, and she was also very beautiful. Most men wouldn't be able to walk away when they saw her. This was the reason why Tokisaki Kurumi called her Vixen. Compared to Tokisaki Kurumi, the Night Sword God 10 Fragrance was too naive. Her thoughts were too narrow, and she didn't know how to display her charm. Of course, it didn't mean that Tokisaki Kurumi was inferior to her. It was just that she didn't know much about men and women. Therefore, she was always at a disadvantage when she fought with Tokisaki Kurumi. To put it bluntly, you're just jealous. Tokisaki Kurumi revealed a look of disdain and smiled mischievously. If you have a problem with me, you can also expose yourself like me. However, you must be able to let go. Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Tokisaki Kurumi provocatively. At the same time, she flirted with Dustless and winked at him. It was obvious that she wanted him to thank her. This woman is acting as if I ordered her to do so. Don't look at me like that, or others will think that I'm the mastermind. Dustless was extremely embarrassed. He glared at Tokisaki Kurumi. He was sure that Itsuka Kotori and Tokisaki Kurumi would be led astray by her as time passed. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2155. Toka is right this time. This woman is a vixen with a belly full of evil tricks. She's always thinking of ways to frame me. Dustless agreed with Toka's point of view. Toka Kurumi also felt helpless at times. If Itsuka Kotori and the others were here, it would be inevitable for them to scold Dustless. However, it was worth mentioning that Rain Murasame tested her favorability with Toka Kurumi. Toka Kurumi's favorability towards Dustless was no longer 0. It had risen to 30%. Although it was still pitifully low, it was much better than 0. Shameless vixen, don't be too proud. Toka Kurumi stared at Toka Kurumi. Although she was stubborn, Her eyes were shining. She seemed to be very tempted by Toka Kurumi's suggestion. Seriously, this little girl is too naive. She fell for my trick so easily. I was just saying it casually. I didn't expect her to really fall for me. Where did Dustless get his charm from? How could he make Toka Kurumi fall for him? God is unfair. Toka Kurumi couldn't help but mumble. She stared at Dustless deeply and then glanced at Toka Kurumi. She was secretly unhappy. In fact, Dustless did not do anything to Toka Kurumi. At least, that was what Toka Kurumi thought. However, there was a saying that one should never guess a girl's thoughts. Unknowingly, Toka Kurumi was already dead set on Dustless. Is she really going to imitate me? This little girl always goes against me. I'm just purposely attacking her. If she really imitates me, wouldn't that be letting Dustless take advantage of her? Tokisaki Kurumi had a strange expression on her face as she stared at the Yado god Toka, whose eyes were filled with desire. She couldn't help but feel a little regretful. She wanted to trap Dustless on purpose. It would be best if Yado Dustless became the target of everyone's criticism. She wanted to wash away the humiliation that Dustless brought to her. But what if Yado god Toka decided to seduce Dustless? Wouldn't that be a huge loss? After all, Shizaki Kurumi's plan was to get all the elves to find trouble with Dustless. Even if he was unhappy, he wouldn't do anything to the elves. But if Toka really wanted to seduce Dustless, it would be unavoidable for Dustless to get intimate with him. However, Tokisaki Kurumi did not expect Toka to be so naive. Tokisaki Kurumi was simply playing with fire. Tokisaki Kurumi did not expect Toka to be so naive. Cough, cough, cough. Thinking of this, Tokisaki Kurumi coughed twice in an attempt to stop Yado god Toka. But just as she was about to speak, Yado god Toka left in a huff. Don't think that you're the only one who knows how to flirt. If you know it, so do I. In fact, I could do it better than you. Leaving these words behind, Yuso Toka disappeared without a trace, leaving behind Tokisaki Kurumi, who could only stare blankly. TSK, TSK. Serves you right. Looking at the stunned Tokisaki Kurumi, Dustless laughed at her misfortune. This woman who was full of evil tricks always went against him. She even tricked Dustless for no reason. Now, she was caught in her own trap. This is the most tragic thing in the world. Dustless suddenly laughed. What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Furrowing her brows, Tokisaki Kurumi asked with an unnatural expression. Sometimes, plans always run counter to reality. She had to pretend that she did not know. Otherwise, if Dustless found out that she did not get her revenge and instead benefited Dustless, wouldn't she become a laughingstock? You don't know? Or are you pretending to be dumb? Dustless snorted in disdain and said with a smile, someone lifted a rock to smash someone else's foot. How vicious. However, as the saying goes, the net of heaven grinds slowly but surely. In the end, someone smashed her own foot. Don't you think this kind of person is ridiculous, Miss Tokisaki Kurumi? Tokisaki Kurumi was furious. Don't be too happy. Yado god Toka is a conservative girl. She might just be joking. Who knows? Dustless shrugged and looked at Tokisaki Kurumi with a smile. Anyway, thanks to you, I might be able to have a good eye in the future. After all, Toka's figure is not bad. She's very pleasing to the eye. Hee. Thank you very much. You're so cooperative in picking up girls. I'm embarrassed to have you as a servant. Dustless winked at Tokisaki Kurumi with a grateful expression. PFFF, Tokisaki Kurumi almost vomited blood. Her face was gloomy. She glared at Dustless and left in anger. It seemed like she went to Toka's room. She only wanted to provoke Yado god Toka and attack Dustless. If Yado god Toka really seduced Dustless because of her, then this brat would be too easy. You think you can fight with me? Little girl, you don't have any self-awareness. You're overestimating yourself. Seeing Tokisaki Kurumi leave in a huff, Dustless smiled and returned to his room to sleep. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2156. Naturally, Tokisaki Kurumi wanted to cry. It was exactly what she had imagined. After following Tokisaki to her bedroom, she found that Tokisaki was trying on some see-through pajamas. The ones that looked more seductive were the ones that Tokisaki Kurumi was trying on. Damn it. After trying for so long, I've already worn out my mouth. In the end, it was Dustless who took advantage of it. I won't allow this to happen. Tokisaki Kurumi stomped her feet. Tokisaki Kurumi didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she saw Tokisaki Kurumi talking about her while changing her pajamas. She was just trying to provoke Tokisaki Kurumi, but she didn't expect the naive Tokisaki Kurumi to believe her. She even swore that she would defeat her. This pure elf's thinking is too simple, even childish. She really can't be judged with common sense. Tokisaki Kurumi sighed in regret. Actually, it wasn't just Tokisaki Kurumi who was depressed. Everyone else was depressed as well. DM Corporation. The highest floor of a skyscraper that pierced through the clouds was extremely luxurious. The expensive decorations in the outside world were just ordinary things here. This was the office of Isaac Ray Pelham Westcott. As one of the higher-ups and even the controller of DM, it was normal for him to receive such treatment. At this moment, he was in a dilemma. There was no other reason other than the blonde girl in front of him. Where is she? Did you say that you failed? You've disappointed me, Irene. Westcott looked at the injured Irene with dissatisfaction in his eyes. There was even a bone-piercing chill in the depths of his eyes. It was fine that he couldn't take care of Dustless, but he couldn't even bring Tokisaki Kurumi back. How could Westcott not be angry? After all, the elves were his prey. No. Irene shook her head. Wrapped in bandages, Irene shook her head. Her attitude was colder and harsher than before. Even though a cold glint flashed past Westcott's eyes, she caught it clearly. After all, she wasn't an ordinary person. Oh, so you succeeded? Where is she? Hearing this, Westcott's lifeless eyes suddenly shot out a cold light. This, Irene sneered in her heart, but her expression didn't change. She said, I was seriously injured. That Dustless was too strong. I only caught Princess, but because my injuries were too serious, I didn't bring her back. I just hid Princess in an abandoned warehouse near the battle. Not bad. You've done well. It's been hard on you, Irene. Westcott smiled and nodded, his expression changing faster than one could flip a book. Bring me to see the princess. Finally getting a test subject, Westcott was very excited. He couldn't wait to look at Irene, his hopeful eyes clearly saying, Hurry up and bring me to see the Nightblade god Toka. Understood. Irene nodded solemnly, but the corners of her mouth raised into an imperceptible cold arc. He had painstakingly tricked Westcott out of the DM company in order to find a suitable environment to hunt Westcott. After all, killing Westcott in the DM company would cause a lot of trouble. Right here. Are you sure you didn't bring it to the wrong place? In the abandoned warehouse, Westcott frowned. At this moment, there was only him and Irene. There was no one else. The smell of this abandoned warehouse was very unpleasant. It was more like a garbage dump, and he could even hear the screams of rats. Of course, Irene glanced at Westcott indifferently. Her attitude was no longer as respectful as before. Like a block of ice, her eyes stared at Westcott without moving, occasionally flashing with cold light. What do you mean by this? Westcott frowned. He could naturally feel the cold air from Irene's body. He was instantly infuriated. A clown dared to challenge him? To put it bluntly, Irene was just a tool for him to capture elves. But at this moment, this tool dared to look at him like he was a prey. Wasn't this rebelling? What do I mean? Don't you know this? What an idiot. Don't you think this place is very suitable for a graveyard? No one would know if someone died. A cold voice suddenly came out from the corner of her mouth. Irene looked at the stunned Westcott with a sneer. You dare to scold me? Westcott looked as if he was struck by lightning. He looked at Irene in a daze. He didn't expect that this subordinate who was usually respectful to him would call him an idiot at this moment. Figure out your identity. Don't forget who gave you this favor. Westcott was furious and said sternly, I can ruin your reputation at any time and even take your life. You know my ability. Whether I'm speaking nonsense or not, you know best in your heart. As a senior of the DM company, Way Scott's ability was indeed extraordinary. But this wasn't a reason for Irene to be afraid of him. Irene sneered and said, "However, before my reputation is ruined, you will definitely be finished." Irene's expression was cold as she pounced at Way Scott with lightning speed. So fast, Way Scott's pupils suddenly shrank a few times. He exclaimed that she was indeed the most powerful magician among humans. In the blink of an eye, she launched a thunderous attack. Bam! A kick came, and Way Scott's body trembled. His face was as pale as snow, and his internal organs were shaking violently. Faint traces of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. This kick didn't show any mercy and wanted to end Way Scott's life. "You dare to betray me?" Way Scott was kicked back repeatedly. Fortunately, he had his own secrets and was only lightly injured in the end. But his face was very interesting. Green and white alternated, and his hair was about to stand up from anger. All this time, he was the one who schemed against others. Who dared to scheme against him? But now he was tricked by someone else. Moreover, it was his most loyal subordinate. How could Way Scott not be angry? "I want you to die without a burial place." Way Scott's eyes were spitting fire. He was smart all his life, but he was stupid at this moment. He didn't expect to be tricked by his own subordinate. This was a great humiliation. P.S. 3,000 rewards, 3,000 fresh flowers, 1,000 comments, 500 automatic subscriptions. Chapter 2157. As a confident and successful man, betrayal was a taboo, especially for a man like Westcott who had a strong sense of control. The higher he stood at the top of the pyramid, the more he was afraid of failure. He could not tolerate even a speck of sand in his eyes, not to mention that he had been plotted against by his subordinates. This was worse than death. "Before I destroy you, I have a question you must answer." Suddenly realizing something, Westcott's expression was extremely gloomy. He looked straight at the girl's perfect face and held back his anger. He gritted his teeth and asked, "What's the reason? Why did you betray me? Is there someone more worthy of your loyalty than me?" "Well, it's very simple." Irene looked at Westcott with contempt and said calmly, "Actually, I feel that my wings have hardened and I don't need you anymore. Is that okay?" Unknowingly, Irene had also been infected by Dustless, and her words had become infuriating. Hearing this, Westcott immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at Irene angrily. What kind of ridiculous reason was this? What did she mean by "my wings have hardened and I don't need you anymore"? Was there a more arrogant reason than this? This was simply a slap in the face and disdain. "No one has ever dared to speak to me like this. You are the first, and you'll also die a horrible death." Westcott roared, his handsome face twisted. Irene's words had trampled on his dignity, and the consequences were even worse than beating him up. "Then I'm sorry. I was thinking that it would be best if you could commit suicide, then I wouldn't have to do it myself. After all, we are acquaintances." Irene was tit for tat, completely different from her usual quiet self. Her aura was strong and confident, and her whole body radiated a spirit that was not inferior to men. Her eyes stared straight at Westcott, occasionally flashing with undisguised contempt. It was obvious that she did not take Westcott seriously. "Compared to Dustless, you are far inferior in every aspect." After pondering for a while, Irene's eyes were filled with disdain as she spoke of the instigator behind the scenes. "As expected, it's that bastard." Hearing this, Westcott was furious, but he did not feel surprised. He only felt that it was ironic. He had sent Irene to assassinate Dustless and Night Sword God Toka, but in the end his trusted subordinate had jumped ship. This was a great humiliation. "Shut up. You're nothing compared to him. You're just a rat hiding in the dark." Hearing that Way Scott dared to scold her boss, Irene's expression turned cold. With a flash, she appeared in front of Way Scott without any warning. "Ha!" When the slap landed, a glaring, blood-red handprint appeared on Way Scott's face. "How dare you slap me?" After being stunned for a moment, Westcott finally realized that he had been slapped by Eileen. He felt as if his lungs were about to explode. How aggrieved was it to be slapped by a traitor? I'm not just going to slap you. I'm going to kill you. Irene looked at Weiss, caught expressionlessly. Her tone was filled with killing intent. Clearly, she wasn't joking. Kill me. Westcott sneered like a cunning wolf. His eyes glowed with a ghostly green light. You're underestimating me. If I could be killed so easily, I would have died a long time ago. Time flew, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. It's been so long. Why hasn't Irene returned? Could it be that she failed? That shouldn't be. Although Irene's strength is no match for mine, it's more than enough to take care of Westcott. In Itsuka Kotori's house, Dustless looked at the blue sky in the distance. He lowered his head and pondered. Could it be that Westcott still has a trump card to deal with Irene? Maybe there really is. That guy is very scheming. Itsuka Kotori suddenly interrupted. Her face was tense, and she was very cautious. She wasn't this nervous when she met the elves. That guy is not simple. He might have some tricks up his sleeve. But there's another possibility. Itsuka Kotori suddenly changed the topic. She looked at Dustless with a gloating expression. Maybe Irene submitted to you because she wanted to buy time. Do you know what I mean? Dustless. Maybe Irene was just pretending to submit to you so that she could escape. Kotori, is not a good habit to talk about other people behind their backs. Dustless glanced at Itsuka Kotori and said confidently, You're right, but I believe in Irene. She knows what's best for her. TSK, you're just being unreasonable. Then why don't you explain why she hasn't returned for 3 days? Itsuka Kotori chewed on her lollipop and looked at Dustless with arrogance in her eyes. Maybe it's because of an accident. Dustless shook his head. He wasn't an omniscient god. How would he know? Then, he suddenly said, But it might be as you guessed before. Irene has encountered some big trouble that she can't solve. Bang! Dustless opened his mouth and was about to say something. Suddenly, the closed door was opened by a huge force. Rain? Dustless looked at the hurried, Murasame Rain with surprise. He was surprised. For a long time, Murasame Rain was the kind of extremely quiet type. She was rarely so rude. Commander, I don't know why. Shido is missing. Murasame Rain looked at Itsuka Kotori and revealed the news she just got. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters. 3,000 rewards plus more chapters. 1,000 comments plus more chapters. 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2158. Shido is missing? How was that possible? Itsuka Kotori was stunned for a moment, and then she muttered to herself in disbelief. Her delicate face turned ugly, and her delicate fists were clenched tightly. After all, Itsuka Shido was Kotori's only family, and there was no doubt about their relationship. Since they were young, Kotori's favorability toward Itsuka Shido was 100%. Missing? That's strange. Dustless was also shocked when he heard Rain Murasame's report. He carefully recalled the original plot, and he didn't remember Itsuka Shido going missing. Maybe he was kidnapped. Dustless narrowed his eyes and said, That kid is very special. Maybe he was captured alive and used. I think so too. Rain Murasame agreed with Dustless's opinion and nodded carefully. I asked Shido's classmates, and many of them said that he was strange these days, and he seemed to be absent-minded. Damn it! Who did it? Itsuka Kotori angrily knocked on the table, and at this moment, she was like a huge barrel of gunpowder, and her anger could be felt no matter how far away she was. Not good. Rei Murasame looked at the angry Itsuka Kotori, and she was worried. If the elf's emotions were out of control, the consequences would be very serious. Even if Itsuka Kotori's spiritual power was sealed by Dustless, the consequences would be unimaginable. Well, this is... Dustless frowned slightly, and suddenly he felt that some kind of power in his body was disappearing. He couldn't help but look at the angry Itsuka Kotori, and he could feel that Itsuka Kotori's power was gradually increasing, and he was surprised. Is this spiritual power reversal? Don't worry. Dustless gently patted Itsuka Kotori's shoulder and comforted her. Kotori, don't worry. In fact, the culprit is already out. In this world, other than AST. Who else could it be? Are you saying? Hearing this, Itsuka Kotori felt a little better, and her emotions gradually calmed down. Her eyes lit up, and she sneered. You mean DM? That's right, those guys are the most suspicious. Who else but them? That kid Westcott is very interested in the power of the elves, but he hasn't given up after Irene's failure. I'm afraid he'll use other tactics, such as capturing Itoka Shido alive to threaten us in a handing over the elves. Dustless shrugged and said bluntly, previously, I ordered Irene to assassinate DM's top executive, Westcott, but she hasn't returned yet. I'm afraid there's also a problem. I'm afraid it was that bastard Westcott who did it. Itsuka Kotori slammed her fist on the table with murderous intent. Her pink eyes were filled with murderous intent and filled with an ominous, sinister aura. Is there any specific information? Dustless looked at Murasame Rain. He was quite confident in the intelligence collection of Ratatosker. Murasame Rain must have collected some evidence. There are some, but I don't understand it. Murasame Rain said helplessly, I don't know much, but I'm afraid it was done by DM. Say it. Itsuka Kotori only said one word, but whether it was Dustless or Murasame Rain, they all felt a chill. That kid is better off dead. Seeing Itsuka Kotori like this, Dustless prayed sincerely in his heart, and suddenly he felt that Itoka Shido was very annoying. Murasame Rain also looked at Itsuka Kotori a few more times, and immediately said seriously, during this period, many people saw Shido take the initiative to get into a black car. I investigated according to the license plate number, and found that although it's not from DM, it had a lot to do with them, Humph. Sure enough, it's those guys. Hearing this, Itsuka Kotori suddenly became angry and stood up angrily. It seemed that she was going to find trouble directly. But we haven't figured out the reason yet. Even if we find them, we have no excuse. After all, Shido took the initiative to go with others. Murasame Rain was quite helpless. In addition to Shido himself, maybe it's because of other people. Don't forget, there's also a little girl that Itsuka Shido cares about very much. Dustless suddenly took a sip of tea and immediately said calmly, I remember that Itsuka Shido has a little sister, seems to be called Chongong Shina, seems to be from DM. As long as they use her as a threat, Itsuka Shido will definitely take the bait. Boom. Perhaps because of the reverse flow of spiritual power, Itsuka Kotori's strength became a lot stronger, and she directly smashed the table and said angrily, those guys are really despicable. Damn it. Although it's just a guess, it's not impossible. Shurdao is such a sentimental person. Murasame Rain also sighed. She knew what kind of person Itsuka Shido was. As long as the other party used Chongong Shina as a threat, Itsuka Shido would definitely take the bait, and he would be the kind of person who would never back down. It just so happens that I'm also going to DM. I'm also looking forward to seeing what that kid has. Dustless's eyes were cold, and he smiled sinisterly. Although I don't know why Irene didn't come back. I'm sure that it's Scott who did it. He's just an ant, but he has guts. After all, Irene had already followed him, and Dustless naturally couldn't be indifferent when she went missing. Phew! Itsuka Kotori took a deep breath, trying to calm down her bad mood, and said seriously, That's good. Rain, you go and prepare now, and bring me all the information about DM. Wait a moment, Commander. Murasame Rain nodded and left. She couldn't help but mourn for Scott. If he offended these two, she was afraid that his end would be extremely miserable. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2159. She knew Itsuka Kotori's temper. Even if she hurt herself, she wouldn't hurt Itsuka Shido. Otherwise, this little girl would go berserk. In the original work, it was because Tashisaki Kurumi injured Itsuka Shido that Itsuka Kotori went berserk. Her spiritual energy reversed, and she turned into a spirit. She displayed her powerful strength and defeated Tashisaki Kurumi, almost killing him in the end. After dealing with that arrogant idiot, it's about time to leave. Dustless muttered to himself as he looked at the warm sun outside the window. The idiot he was talking about was Waycourt. Dustless stretched his back and squinted his eyes in enjoyment. Although this kind of life was comfortable and unrestrained, it gradually became boring as time passed. No matter what it was, whether it was people or things, as time passed, the feelings would fade away. The interest in the beginning would turn into boredom. Leave after success? Itsuka Kotori looked over. Even though Dustless was muttering to himself, she could still hear him clearly. She couldn't help but ask strangely, "Are you going to leave? Do you still have a home? All good things must come to an end." Dustless nodded and looked at the dazed Itsuka Kotori's face. He smiled and said, "What's wrong? You've never been good to me, so why are you looking so pitiful now? Can't bear to part with me?" Dustless got closer to Itsuka Kotori and looked at her beautiful face with a teasing expression. "Oomph." After hearing Dustless's words, Itsuka Kotori's unnatural expression quickly disappeared. She said with disdain, "Who would like a lecherous man like you? Stop dreaming. Do you think I'm a glutton like Toshiaki? That I can't even find my way around because of some soybean flour bread?" Dustless didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled as if Itsuka Kotori wasn't talking about him. "You're really heartless. To think I want to take you with me. Of course." Hearing this, the joy in Itsuka Kotori's eyes disappeared instantly. Her expression changed at lightning speed. She looked at Wu-chan with disdain and snorted. "There are countless people who like me. Even if I wait for a few decades, it won't be your turn. This girl really likes to push her luck." Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had seen many narcissistic and arrogant people, but it was rare to see someone as arrogant as Itsuka Kotori. Dong dong dong. At this time, the sound of high-heeled shoes was heard again. Wu-chan and Kotori looked over and saw Murasame Rain's voice. "You're here already? Rain, you've collected all information about Waycourt?" Itsuka Kotori saw Rain Murasame, who left for less than 2 minutes, and ordered in a low voice, "Go and check it again. I want all the details. Waycourt is very mysterious. Everything about him looks like it's not necessary." Before Itsuka Kotori could finish, Dustless interrupted her. He saw the anxiety in Murasame Rain's eyes and shrugged. "I'm afraid there's a new problem. I just changed my clothes and was about to go out when I saw a letter at the door." Murasame Rain put the letter on the table, and the sender was Waycourt. "That guy wrote a letter?" Dustless curled his lips and said with disdain, "He's just a small fry. Why would he write a letter? Idiot." Murasame Rain and Itsuka Kotori looked at Dustless speechlessly. They didn't know what this guy was thinking. "What did it have to do with you?" Ahem. Noticing that the two women were looking at him strangely, Wu-chan coughed awkwardly. "I mean, the content of this letter is probably a challenge letter or a threat letter. That stinky bug is about to lose his life, but he still wants to play this game. Isn't he asking for humiliation? He's asking to be humiliated. I like to see what kind of tricks Waycourt is going to play." Itsuka Kotori opened the envelope and took out the letter. She squinted her eyes and looked at it carefully for a while. Bang! A few minutes later, Itsuka Kotori angrily slammed the table and said with hatred, "That guy really caught Shido and asked me to give him all the elves, or else what?" Murasame Rain asked nervously. Seeing Itsuka Kotori's pale face, she vaguely guessed something. "Do you still need to say it?" "Of course it's to kill them." Wu-chan gulped down a mouthful of tea. There was a faint, evil smile at the corner of his mouth. He was not worried at all. Instead, he took pleasure in other people's misfortune. He could not help but laugh secretly. "If Itoka Shido can be killed, I will be merciful and grant Wei Scott a complete corpse." In fact, he didn't like Itsuka Shido for a long time. This guy didn't have any power at all, but he still wanted to save the elves. Wasn't he looking for death? If it wasn't for Dustless, this guy would have been killed already. Now that Waycourt was willing to help Dustless get rid of this burden, He couldn't ask for more. It's the same as Dustless's guess. Murasame Rain took the letter in Itsuka Kotori's hand and looked at it carefully. She frowned and said, "He really used Shido, 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 Shido. No wonder he left with Wei Court's people. But didn't Shido think that this must be Wei Court's trap? I told you." Dustless was quite calm, as if he already expected this. Itsuka Shido is too kind. He used the emotional card a little bit, and that guy will definitely be fooled. It's not that Wei Court is too smart. It's just that Itsuka Shido is too naive. Without power, he always wanted to do things beyond his ability. It was only a matter of time before he was unlucky. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2160. It's too late to say anything now. Don't worry about these useless things. What's important now is how to save my brother and your Irene. Itsuka Kotori looked at Dustless and said seriously, especially when she mentioned your Irene. She purposely emphasized the word your Irene. Obviously, she was reminding Dustless not to get involved. Although Itsuka Kotori wasn't happy with what Dustless said before, she could only grit her teeth and admit it. After all, this was the truth. Itsuka Shido was too childish when it came to relationships. After being tricked and used slightly, even if he knew that it was a trap, he would still persevere and fall into it. The current situation was like that. He clearly knew that Wolcott wasn't a good person, but he still fell into the trap. Where is the place of the transaction? Dustless didn't want to argue with Itsuka Kotori and looked at Rain Murasame. Their company, DM and our company. Murasame Lingyin's face was ugly. This was like a sheep entering the tiger's den. What if we reject Wei Court's offer? Itsuka Kotori frowned and asked. This. Rain Murasame went silent for a while and read the letter carefully. She shook her head and said, "It's not detailed. He just asked us to take Toka and the others to DM's company to sell Irene and Shido. We can only follow Wei Court's arrangement for now." After hesitating, Itsuka Kotori nodded. For her, Itsuka Shido's safety was more important than anything else. "I reject." But Dustless looked coldly at Itsuka Kotori and said seriously, "Toka and the others aren't goods. You want to trade them?" "I reject no one." "You." Hearing this, Itsuka Kotori was enraged. "Are you out of your mind? If you reject, not only will Shido die, even Irene won't be able to escape Wei Court's torture. He hates traitors." Itsuka Kotori took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "I know Wei Scott quite well. That guy is definitely a despicable person. The reason he didn't mention what would happen if they rejected him in the letter is probably to torture them slowly." "Is that so? So what?" Dustless took a sip of tea and said coldly, "I've done a lot of bad things in my life, but no matter what, I've always had a clear conscience. I've never regretted my actions. If you want to trade the 10 incense with someone else, dream on." You're a blockhead." Itsuka Kotori shouted angrily. She looked at Dustless's expressionless face and fell helpless. She had no choice but to mediate. "I'm only giving them the 10 incense temporarily. Do you think I'm abandoning the elves? Even if you agree, I won't." Itsuka Kotori's job was to protect the elves. How could she hand the elves over to Weiss Court? Absolutely impossible. The reason why he did this was because he wanted to redeem Itoka Shido and the others, and then find a way to rescue Toka and the others. "I still refuse." Wu Chan shrugged his shoulders. His unyielding attitude made Itsuka Kotori extremely depressed. She roared, "Do you want Irene to be tortured to death? Just watch on helplessly? Was he going to leave her to die? I remember that Irene has already joined you." "I didn't say that I'm going to leave her to die. Don't accuse me." Dustless shook his head mysteriously. His eyes emitted a scarlet, murderous aura. He looked at Murasame Rain and asked, "Do you know the location of DM's company?" "DM has a lot of industries, and the important companies are hidden in the dark. But in order to facilitate this transaction, Weisskort told us the location of the meeting. That's enough. I'll do this transaction. Hearing this, Dustless smiled. With the detailed location, why would he worry about not being able to destroy Weisskort? Dustless didn't like him for a long time. That kid will definitely die, especially since he dared to capture his people. As for Go Shido, Dustless was too lazy to manage him. If possible, he didn't mind finding a suitable opportunity to get rid of Go Shido. This kid was always a burden. If he continued to be with him, maybe he would cause some big problems. You finally agreed? Seeing Dustless's confident look, Itsuka Kotori thought that he agreed to hand over Toka and the others temporarily. She immediately took a sip of her coffee and smiled. I didn't expect that the blockhead would finally be enlightened. You misunderstood me. Dustless glanced at Itsuka Kotori and said coldly, I plan to go alone and kill all those people and get Irene. As for handing over Toka, I'll say it again. Dream on. I've said it before, I don't want to live a grand life. I just want to have a clear conscience. Puffed. Itsuka Kotori's chest rolled, and she spat out all the coffee. She looked at Dustless angrily. Why didn't this guy understand what she meant? He was only temporarily handing 10 fragrance and the others over to Wei Scott to stabilize the situation. He would then find an opportunity to snatch them back. However, Dustless was incomparably stubborn at this moment. He was completely one-track minded and did not know how to be flexible. That little girl trusts me a lot. If I hand her over to Wei Court, how do you expect me to face her in the future? Dustless asked calmly. Although his tone was light, it was firm. Not to mention, Dustless sneered and said, that idiot Westcott actually dares to bargain with me. He doesn't even know what kind of existence his enemy is. Send him to his death. Destroy that bullsh asterisk TDM company along with him. Dustless's tone was extremely calm. Itsuka Kotori and Murasame Rain looked at each other. Hearing Dustless's words, their scalps went numb. DM company had thousands of employees. Was this guy going to kill them all? The two girls stared at Dustless. Suddenly, they realized that they were wrong. Dustless may seem like a gentle and quiet person, but deep down, he was a demon king who killed without batting an eyelid. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 100 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.